and looking at the staff and employee experience. That, and then the next signal of change was that we have a lot of new staff and volunteers around, right? We've got so many new people, and we want to teach them about the Y as a larger movement, right? Outside, both in their local Ys, but also outside of that. We also know that we have to reignite the learning and leadership development. We're doing a lot of really great work locally. How do we kind of bring that together? We also, at the same time, know that there are so many leaders that we can celebrate that have great mission and cause and impact that's happening. And so how do we lift them up and really celebrate them together as one entity? And then the other one is we just want to have fun, right? There's sometimes where we get so bogged down into like, what do we have to do to that? What's my checklist for the day? That we just want to have a little bit of fun, you know, and learn together and have a good time. And so the theme this time was looking at our why, exploring our both our why as a why. And so this is a little bit about us collectively. So this our why, so we have 16 Ys, 16 YMCA associations in Florida, 2 in Puerto Rico, and we have over 25,000 staff and YMCA leaders that work for the Florida and Puerto Rico Ys. We also have 44,000 volunteers that give time, talent, treasure to the YMCAs in Florida and Puerto Rico. So that's our why. But when you look at these, your why and our why are one and the same. And so all of that work, all of the work that we do is because of you. It's because of the way that you show up to serve. It's because you have committed to strengthening communities through healthy living, youth development, and social responsibility. So your why is a part of our why and vice versa. And so now what we want to do is make sure that we're pouring back into all of us. So we've got awesome things planned for you. The first one that to always start off is you always want to start off with something fun. So I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to scan that QR code or go to that website in that corner. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. Katie's going to lead us through some Y trivia, both trivia that is history trivia that is like our culture trivia, and everything in between. So give us a second as we transition and make sure you scan that QR code, and I will drop it also in the chat as well if you're more the type that likes to grab it there. And that is coming in the chat right now. So grab your phones or your web browser, and we will get started here shortly. Looks like we've got about 30 people in there. We have about 50 on. So when we get about a little more than half, Katie, I think we can get started.
Okay. I can't see your screen yet. So it's like in loading. I also joined for no reason. So
can you hear or no?
What?
Oh, here, should I turn this down? I'm just gonna go ahead and turn the music off so that way people can hear you.
All right, everyone. While Scott gets that loaded, and oh wait, so Scott, are you going to share the questions, or is it just all on the phone?
Yep, nope, I'm going to share the
Okay,
questions here
perfect.
too.
All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm really glad that we are kicking off the day with something fun, like Scott said. I know that right now it is an insanely busy time for all of us as we're prepping for summer camp and just lots of stuff with the summer coming. So I was really excited to be able to host this section just so we can have a little fun and learn about our why and just get some trivia. So it looks like, oh, okay, cute. I'm the donut, which is my favorite food. So I don't know how they knew that, but love that. I'm sure we've got some very competitive people here, but this is all just for fun, low key, and not really. I'm very competitive. And I think each question, there's 30 seconds between questions or between that you can answer, and you do get more points for the how fast you answer. So it's kind of like Kahoot. So get your buttons ready. And we have 35. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think yep, I think we're ready to go.
All right.
All right.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. First question. What is the YMCA's cause? What is our cause? There's going to be some tricky ones. So. Yep, get your buttons ready. I know that when we show the leaderboard, there's going to be like people like, oh yeah, thank goodness I won. So, oh, 30 seconds is kind of a long time. Okay, there was a trick one in there. Yep, that was so our cause is to strengthen community. But the other answer was very good. Oh, come on.
Oh, we got some competition.
I knew we would. Uh-oh.
Oh, we got the whole YMCA of Collier County.
Oh gosh. Their knowledge is okay. Okay, well, we got more people joining. Good. All right, second question. When was the YMCA founded? 2000, 1984, 1844, 1851. Well, that wasn't 30 seconds. All right.
Maybe they're not all 30 seconds.
Hit. Oh, okay. Again, we all got stumped a little. It was 1844.
They are so close though.
They are very close.
1851 was when it came to the US.
Oh.
Little trick there.
All right. Oh, Derek's getting nervous. Let's see.
Looks like Tim got the fastest award.
We got, okay, Tim. We see you. Oh, we got more people. Oh, yay. All right, what is the YMCA's leadership competency model called? I believe we will be learning more about this today, which is exciting. What is the official name? What is it called? And 30 seconds is not happening anymore, so y'all better get going.
I don't know where the 30 seconds came from and then it disappeared.
We got it. Amazing. Yep, it is called the cause-driven leadership competency model that we will be learning more about today. I'm sorry. The anxiety with the
Woo!
It's Friday, y'all. Let's wake up. Okay. This next question is my favorite. One of my favorites. What year was the first Y in Florida founded? I won't make you guys say the Y, but bonus points if you do know it. What year was the first Y in Florida founded? Oh, okay. We got a large, but they're all pretty close, right? So we did pretty good. The answer is 1870. So shout out to those 7 people. Yeah, Lynn. Lynn said First Coast better get this one. 1870. Oh wow. Things are changing rapidly here, people.
Oh, I'm like, this stresses me out every time I see this because it's like, oh, that person just dropped off the board.
Oh my gosh. All right, we all better get this one, y'all. What is one of the 4 core values of the Y?
This one has 30 seconds.
Oh, well, isn't that lovely? And it's not multiple choice, so you just have to name one.
Yeah, and it will only say one, but it will give you many options. Like it will accept all 4.
Now 30 seconds feels like a lifetime.
All right, we got some respects, we got some honesties. A lot of people said carrying.
We got a T-spec. Did you see
Oh,
that, Scott?
oh, come on. It should have counted those.
Oh, you guys. See,
Look,
over a
T-spec.
I will take T-spec. You get a Katie point. Okay.
Yeah. We can't actually solve that, but the Katie points also count.
Yeah, the overachievers didn't get credit.
There might also be another redemption question. If I remember, I might have made it a multiple choice too.
All right. Oh, this was used by James Naismith as the original hoop for his game of basketball. What did he originally use? Shooting them baskets.
I got another song for you, Scott.
Go for it.
I got my beaches down in Georgia.
Well, you just gave it away.
Hey, it's a fun day.
Yeah, it is a fun day. And most people got it anyway.
Oh, good. Yep, it was a beach basket. Very innovative.
Let's see.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Everybody is performing
Million
beautifully.
and Robert are like fighting for the top.
Oh, Robert's out here. Right. Next question. In the WISE cause-driven leadership competency model, how many leadership competencies are there? 14, 18, 22, 4, and 10. Oh.
All right. Well, that helps us for later on because we're going to learn a little bit about it.
This is good feedback. Yep, there are 14, and we will be learning about that here, I think, right after this or pretty shortly after. So that's great. It's good. It's okay.
Oh, he cheated.
Oh, Derek. Where was the first swimming
Sorry,
pool?
that was my bad.
Oh,
We're going to go back to it.
I'll still say it. Where was the first swimming pool opened at a Y? You're going to have different cities. Austin, Tampa, Brooklyn, Dallas, or Pittsburgh? Brooklyn. Okay, yep, we got that one. Boston. Oh yeah, I didn't see that. Sorry, 21 people. It's okay. We were in the right area. Yep, it was Brooklyn, New York. So
At least no one said Dallas, right?
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Oh, Millie. All right.
Really cool, because like one question can change it all.
I know, just like Kahoot. Okay, when was YPN founded? And when it was founded, it was not called YPN, so that might give you a little helping hint. It was not called YPN. That was a really hard question. I'm not gonna lie. I did not know the answer until luckily I have the answers, but it was 1871. What was it called?
It was called the General Secretary Network. So it was like, imagine like it started with like all the CEOs. CEOs used to be called General Secretaries, and they were brought together 1 year after the first Y in Florida opened.
Well, I like the name YPN better, so I think we've upgraded that. Oh, Stephanie got a lucky guess. Oh, fastest too. Okay.
Some competitions brewing.
We're over halfway done here. Okay. Who was the Y leader that was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1946 for their work in promoting peace across faith groups and religious dominations and bridging the racial divide?
Oh, so close.
No one said Oprah. Yep, it's okay. John Mott was that leader. So very good. Very thankful for that. I love Mentimeter. This is a great tool. All right. What does the acronym YPN stand for? What does it stand for? Woohoo! Yep, YMCA Professional Network. Okay, now everyone knows that, so that's good. This next one is very interesting. Which former US president was a lifeguard who was credited with saving 77 lives? This is a great question. If we turn all those frowns upside down. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yay! Yes, Ronald Reagan. Great job, guys. Back to a frown. You're killing me. Oh man. All right, we've got a couple more. Which holiday was founded by the YMCA? I can't give you a hint. Yep, Father's Day. I was going to say, I think it's probably on this list the next holiday that we have, but I would have given it away. But good job, everyone. We're crushing it. Just had to warm those fingers up, and now we're like just zooming around. All right, I believe this is another typing one, maybe. What is one of the 5 attribute words for our culture? Oh no, it's not a typing one. Good.
Yeah, I think I thought this one was a little hard, so we made it a
5. So you just got to pick one. What is one of the 5 attribute words that we use to describe our culture?
and there is more than one right answer.
There
so you will get
is.
credit for any of the right answers.
Yeah. Just, yeah, this would have been a hard typing one. So that was a good call, Scott. Oh,
Hey.
all right, there we go. Welcoming was the one that comes to my mind too, so that makes sense. All right, we've got about 3 more questions. Oh, this leaderboard is shifting. Who is the current Y of the USA president?
And I will give you a hint. All of them were presidents of
Oh,
YMCA,
yep.
but there's only one current president.
Suzanne McCormick. Yes. She took over when, Scott? 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think 2021.
2 years ago.
And she is a Tampa resident as
I
well
was
as
gonna say she
half
lives.
Chicago.
Yep, she lives. She reps us. All right. What do we call the culture and engagement work that we do at the Y? What is our kind of title for it? Excited to learn more about this as well later. Hopefully everyone's anxieties have gone down now.
We're coming to the final end.
We just wanted to wake you guys up really early, but yeah, amazing. Great job, everyone. Living our cause. All right, I think we have one more question, which is one that I was schooled on recently. So
shall we get into it?
yeah, we
Last
shall.
question.
Yes, last question. Get them fingers ready. It's also kind of a hard one. When was the Florida State Alliance of YMCAs founded? You know us, you love us. When did it start existing?
If you're a really quick Facebook searcher.
This is hard. There's no time for that. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. This is a tricky one. I did not know this either, and I do work for them. I learned it like a year ago, but 2004.
Yes.
So,
all right, let's see.
Oh my gosh. Everyone is a winner. We all did great. It's just for fun. Oh, it's loading.
Awesome, Trinity.
Hey, Trinity.
Congratulations.
Our rose goes to Trinity.
So Trinity, if that was you, go ahead and DM me your like what address you want, but we've got like a swag bag we'll send over to you for winning today.
Oh, see, I didn't know there was a prize. I would have been promoting that. I was gonna.
Well, I didn't want to promote it too much, because then like people's true colors come out, right?
I was like, that changes things. Yes, congrats to Trinity and to everyone did very well. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to host. And I think that was a great way to start off the morning. So thank you, Scott, and everyone.
Yes. And we're gonna move a little bit quickly through this because I want to make sure Karen has all of the time in the world to be able to do this. And I know she's on a tight crunch time. So hopefully you learned something through that. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that throughout the day. But I would love to introduce Karen Friedman from YUSA. Not only is she the mental health guru, she's been on the DIG team before. She's done a lot of work to support local Ys, and now she's starting I guess a newish venture on a newish team to kind of look at like how do we support mental health at our local Ys for our communities, for our staff, for our people. So Karen, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, it's so good to see your face, and I will stop sharing now.
Perfect. And I'll pull it up. Thank you so much, Scott, for the introduction, and hello, Florida. So excited that we were able to do this today. I know we don't have a ton of time together, but Scott and the team was really intentional about ensuring we talked about mental health. So as Scott mentioned, this is a newish role, but it's not new work. We know we've been supporting and doing work around supporting mental health of communities for a long time. We've just been continuing to organize and elevate the work happening at the local level, and also support you all in your day-to-day, and how can we best position the Y so that we can work alongside our community to support mental health. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I did just want to take a couple moments, talk a little bit about kind of what we've been doing the past couple years around this. And then we have a couple exercises actually that have come out of our Go Kits that would love to practice with you all. We have a couple minutes, and then I'll leave with a bunch of resources, and that I'll also make sure to send to Scott and the team so that you all have that. So again, here I just walked through this. So we'll talk about this. We're going to talk about the mental health community care model because it helps provide some foundational pieces around how we're talking about mental health, do some practice, and then some action. So again, quickly, just wanted to mention that, since with the onset of COVID-19, mental health became a priority for many YMCAs, for many communities. We've fully recognized that mental health, specifically youth mental health, was already was already poor prior to the pandemic. The pandemic kind of exacerbated a lot of the work around that. So in 2020, in the past couple of years, we've been working alongside a number of local Ys, going through the innovation process, which I think many of you are familiar with, really to look at what's happening at the local level. How do we begin to identify and then begin to support and talk through and test what would be best for local YMCAs around supporting mental health, community mental health. So these are just a couple slides. I don't want to spend a ton of time, but just to let you know, we've been working alongside Ys and talking about this and kind of beginning to test some of the frameworks and pieces around understanding and how we as a Y can support the community mental health. So what came out of a lot of those discussions and a lot of committee meetings and cohorts was what we call the mental health community care model. And it's really based on the concept that we all have mental health. Right. And I see many people have the Mental Health Awareness Month background and talking, and this is language that we've begun really socializing across the movement. And we're hearing this in many other spaces as well. This is by no means just coming from the Y. But if we all have mental health, then we all have a role in supporting mental health. And that includes for each other, our colleagues, our staff, and our volunteers. And the community care model, based upon that, we all have mental health, also is looking at what we've been looking at, the mental health of the two continuums of mental health and how we're talking about it. This research comes from Keys that has been around a while, but in the past, sometimes when we talked about mental health, it was only associated with mental illness. And we just want to broaden that perspective and continue to talk about it in a way. So if you look at the graphic on the screen here, you can see that we have on the x-axis, we have mental illness and no mental illness, kind of that spectrum there. But in addition, it's been added in terms of high mental wellness and low mental wellness, recognizing that each of us, right, may fall along that spectrum of having a diagnosed or diagnosable mental illness or no diagnosed mental illness, but also having high mental wellness or low mental wellness. So if you look in some of these quadrants, and I think some of us, I would say many of us over the past couple of years may have not had a diagnosed mental illness, but have experienced low mental wellness at some point. So beginning to look at this, where can the why come in terms of intervention, prevention, support, and recovery? When we think of mental health, it's been talked about just in mental illness that the only thing we can do is provide clinical support. And we want to expand that because we know the work that you're doing day in and day out is supporting mental health. So we're looking to change the conversation around that. So again, in looking at this graphic, an individual may have a diagnosed mental illness, but can also have high mental wellness, right? They can be managing, doing really well. In addition, as I said before, an individual may not have a diagnosed mental illness, but feeling poor or having low mental wellness. And we'll begin to look at where can the why step in for some of those times when maybe low mental wellness is, when someone's experiencing low mental wellness or beginning to get into that area, where can we step in as a community organization to support those individuals and each other? And this is where we come into the community of care model. Really beginning to talk about those informal supports that we are providing. Again, as we talk about this, there's a recognition that a lot of the work we're doing by creating spaces of belonging and inclusion, by creating strong relationships through our character development work, through social emotional learning, through many of these spaces is supporting mental health. We just want to become more intentional in how we talk about it and the things that we're doing and begin to identify some of the behaviors and skills that we can build capacity as ourselves, as well as our staff, and volunteers and communities and families that we serve. So again, the community care model is really saying that the support provided in community settings by community members, or the why, right, focuses on mental health promotion with the aim of increasing healthy behaviors, protective factors, resilience, as well as aiding in healing and recovery, right? For an individual, even who has a diagnosed mental illness, right, who may be in crisis, after that crisis, they come back into the community. How can we be there to ensure we're still providing support? So the crisis and support, the very specialty care is critical. We need to know and how to identify and when to refer to those services and ensure we're talking about that. But we also need to recognize all the different supports we can provide wrapping around that there's other opportunities for us to do that. So this is the community care model that we're walking through. Great, and I see that, again, Scott, oh, is it in presentation mode? I just got that. I'm sorry if it's not showing up that way. Is it showing up in presentation mode, Scott?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's I'm sorry. I'm on a one screen. Here,
It's
I'm going to
okay.
reshare.
We know the
I know that's
of one screen going from a 2-screen luxury to a 1 screen.
I know. Is that better?
Yes.
Thanks for alerting me in the chat, y'all. Sorry if that other, but this is really the key. And I'll pause here for a moment just so we have that really looking at this community care model. And we were actually intentional as we were creating some of these graphics. So I'll go back to our mental health, looking at these two continuums, and you'll see that dark green, right? And that dark green area is really where the community can come in and support mental health. So we're looking at the 3 quadrants. When we're in that diagnosed mental illness, low mental wellness, that's kind of that crisis, that's when we rely and refer, unless we have, we do know that there's a number of Ys that may have clinicians on staff, but that's not every Y. But that area is really that specialty care. But all of that green, right, in those areas, that's where, and you see it correlates with the community that we can come in and support mental health. And I'm going to continue, and I'm just checking the chat too, because that was really helpful last time, as y'all are telling me to go through the screen. Any questions or comments, please, throw them in the chat if you have anything as I'll go through. But so as we talk about this community care model, and I know we're a big group here, just wondering, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to walk through this next one and begin thinking about what knowledge, skills, and behaviors do we need in order to support mental health within the community. And a big piece of that is really just that understanding that we began with, is that mental health is something that we all have. It's how we think, feel, and act. So if we all have mental health, we all have a role in supporting mental health, and we can all benefit from being in community and receiving those supports we're talking about in some of those different areas. What are the different ways we can do that? Another way is applying positive self-care practices routinely, and we're going to practice a couple of those. The critical piece around this, right, and I know we've all heard this, is, when you're on the airplane, how do you put your own mask on first? And what we've heard time and time again from our staff is that our staff are burned out, that, we know that there's a lot of stress, poor mental wellness being experienced, whether that's due to community divisiveness, just whether due to the amount of work and our low staffing rates, many different reasons are impacting that. So how do we ensure that we're elevating and providing those positive self-care practices? And we have a number of tools and resources to do that. And when we talk about self-care, while we all do love a spa day, this is much deeper than just, thinking of something like that, or just taking, one day, a day vacation and then jumping back into everything. How can we really begin to focus and prioritize our own mental health to be able to recognize the signs when we ourselves aren't doing well? And then also take the time to begin having genuine conversations with each other, especially as staff, to ask each other, how are you doing? Right? The power of that, right? We know, culturally we'll say that and everyone, the response is fine or good, and then you move on. But how do we begin to build a culture at our Y to begin asking those questions, and that we can provide space to talk about, maybe not, and again, if you're not doing well, or if things are going on, if you're stressed, to open that up, those conversations. So again, engaging in conversations in a genuine way with empathy and intent of building meaningful relationships. Beginning to understand and applying trauma-informed guiding principles when interacting with each other. And there's a lot of work being done around trauma-informed care at the local level in communities, many trainings. We've got some trainings available to understand really what we're talking about trauma. The prevalence of trauma, especially amongst youth, is high. Experiencing trauma is also chronic stress. What are the stressors? How do we begin to build in some operational pieces in our programs, our services that can help support those that maybe have experienced a lot of stress, by providing routine, by providing relationship, by providing connection to community. Ensuring we understand the social determinants of health, systemic racism, discrimination, and marginalization on mental health. We recognize that there are certain groups based upon dimensions of diversity that are experiencing poor mental health due to discrimination, due to disconnection from community. And so really, as the Y, as the community convener, how do we ensure those groups still have access and are still able to feel connected to community through that? How do we model emotional regulation, co-regulation, and effective coping skills? Recognizing the signs that someone may be struggling. There's, a number of pieces and trainings. How do we ensure that? And then connecting individuals to primary and specialty supports when needed, and providing initial response in crisis situations. So really taking the time prior, and I know many of you have done this, who are your community partners? Who are the outlets, whether that's for staff, if you have an EAP program, if you have local mental health resources, what are those that we can look up now, make connections to, so that we can make sure that we're connecting different individuals and people to those resources. So walking through and beginning to identify some of these knowledge, skills, and behaviors around mental health. Again, as I mentioned, we have a mental health community on link that includes all of this information, and I'll throw some links in the chat and walking through that. And now I would love to do some practice. And I think I'm going to pass over this one just because we're a larger group, but something that we do ask, and this is maybe an action step I'm going to ask for you all to do after this session or later today, is really to take a moment and describe what the community care model is to a colleague or a coworker. What is this community care model? How do you see it? What is it like in your own words? Because we know that if we're talking about this and discussing it and really beginning to socialize it, that's when individuals will begin to understand it. So we're intentional. This is not a model that's meant to have a lot of training behind it. This is really a concept and a thought that we just want to ensure that we all recognize at the Y. our spirit, mind, and body, right? Holistically, how do we support one another? And the community care model is helping us just provide, continue to provide some language around those pieces. So my action step for all of you is to take some time in the next couple days and talk about the community care model. And as we said, we've been having conversations and discussions. This is evolving. If this doesn't connect, if there's things missing, please always let us know, or what you're hearing from community around this. But at this point, I'm going to put this in. I do want us all to do an individual activity, and I will put this into the chat right now as I'm talking. But as I had talked about, self-care, what are some of those self-care practices that we can do? And this one, I'd like you to take a moment. The worksheet is available on link, so you can click through it, or you can look on the screen here, is to begin to identify some of the support. Who are some of the support people in your life? And here, I'll put that right in. Oh, thank you.
Trying to help you out.
You're the best. Thanks, Scott. Right, so I would love for you to click on this link, or, I'll stop sharing and share a larger screen of this. And we're going to take 3 minutes. It'll be nice and silent. And I'd just love you to take a couple minutes and fill this out. Fill out this piece. Yeah, I'm going to find it.
Karen, if it's easier, I can also pull it up too.
Okay. Yeah, maybe do you want to, just because it's pulling up still pretty small and I want people to be able to see it. Here, I'll stop. There we go. So this worksheet is about building your support network. So if you look on the left-hand column, and I can read these out too, so you can begin to think about this, but I would like you to take a moment to write these down. So the types of support: laughter, who are the people that make you smile? Emotional, who are the individuals that you can share joy with? Validation, people who recognize your strengths. Coaching, problem solving, and accountability. And you can add your own in there, but please just take a moment to kind of list out some of those. Yeah, it's still a blank screen, Scott. There we go. Perfect. Oh, thank you, Derek, for putting that as well, the full document. Okay, hopefully you all were able to take a moment and write some of those down. Does anyone just want to come off of mute and talk about that experience just very quickly, about having the practice of doing that? Anybody have any ahas or seeing any patterns of the people they filled out? You don't have to tell us who you filled out, but any thoughts on that practice?
I do. This is Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
Um, I think this is a great activity. I think it's a great activity for, ourselves on this call today, but also all our employees. Because it's like with anything that we do in life, there's always a sounding board, and this kind of gives you your sounding board. You have to have that board to go to all the time and to think about those key people in your life that might be that person.
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. And thank you so much for sharing. And yes, we are intentional by practicing this with you because sometimes we send out resources, right? And we know how busy everyone is. And if we don't provide some space to do it and see, the power that it can bring. And then we also hope you practice this with your staff. Absolutely. Any other thoughts or comments? That was great, Jenny. Okay, and if I could take back sharing, Scott, I think Scott put it up. Yep, I will. So now we're just going to take another moment. What I would love you to do, right, is I'm assuming many of you, if you're not on your phone, have your phone right next to you. Take a moment, look at that list you just had, and send a quick note of gratitude to one of those people. Just a quick note saying, I appreciate you, or whatever you would like to do, just a quick note of gratitude and appreciation. So if you could send them a quick text, an email, whatever that looks like, whoever that is, just let's take another 30 seconds to do that, to express gratitude.
Yeah, sorry about that. Broadcasting.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. We have other tools that we don't have a lot of time today to go through, but just wanted to walk through that one through practice. But we have other things around self-care. How do we build this into our routine? So we have examples up on the screen now is a daily reflection tool, just to reflect and process, or taking a moment to think about the things in our life that we're doing for ourselves, where we're identifying what we can support ourselves, the steps to get towards those things if we're not able to, if we don't have time, and just some time for reflection. This is just one example, but how do we build in some reflection time to take that moment, right? To identify those who support us, to provide gratitude, and also to reflect on that, to take some time walking through that, those pieces. So these are just a couple of the tools that are available on Link that you can utilize with yourself. And thanks, Scott, for throwing that in there, to do with yourself, but as well as with your staff team. These are all, we have our mental health activation tool so that you can utilize some of these activities with your teams, with your colleagues, and walking through that. This is a recent study that just came out that I'm not sure if you all have seen that, but this is a global study, and some of these statistics are pretty, they seem, but not shocking, I would say, but they make sense, right? But 70% of employees worldwide say managers have a greater impact on people's mental health than doctors or therapists, right? We think about that in the workplace, our managers, our colleagues, the impact that they can have on mental health, and the impact that we can have to support one another's mental health. I think in the past, there may have been a notion, and this is generational as well, that you don't bring, you leave your emotions at the door when you walk into work, that we don't talk about these things. And we're beginning to say, actually, we can talk about these things. We can provide space to ask each other how they are. We can build it in different ways, easy ways to provide opportunities, whether that's at staff meetings, whether that's in our one-on-one meetings with each other, just to do some check-ins, to do those different pieces. The other piece too is employees, especially, our Gen Z generation is beginning to prioritize mental health along the same lines as pay, right? And we know pay equity also has a lot of overlap with mental health, but just the importance and the prioritization that individuals are feeling around mental health. Yeah, Ben, that's right. Gen Z is really driving this and really supporting conversations. Which is wonderful. It's also, when we talk about the generational difference, as I said, I'm Gen X, right? When I came into the workforce, this is not something that was talked about often. So I need to learn how to practice this, how to do this within boundaries as well, right? How do we ensure we're supporting one another's mental health, but still holding each other accountable, still ensuring that we're able to get our work done day in and day out. So it's also an evolution of how we all come together and talk about what that looks like in each of the spaces that we're serving in, walking through this. So more and more information, studies are coming around the importance of identifying and supporting mental health and mental wellness while we're at work. And I know, looking at many faces, at the Y, I know we're at work a lot, right? And I know that sometimes those lines blur because that we live in the communities that we're serving in many times. So how do we ensure that we're elevating this and prioritizing this along those lines? So my action steps for you all today is to commit to 5 minutes of practicing self-care each day for yourself. And that can look like many different ways. We'll put the resources in the box. We have information on self-care. There's a lot of information, a lot of pieces out there. Whatever that looks like for you, how do you prioritize spending 5 minutes for yourself, whatever that looks like? Oh, sorry, I thought I had taken these out, but that's okay. Do the activities you did today with your staff, with your staff. Look through them. Look through the activation guide. There's a bunch of different activities and pieces you can do. And then complete the self-care go kit as a staff team and use the learning guide to foster discussion. So I'm gonna pause there. I'll stop sharing, throw some of the links in the chat. Would love to just take a moment for any questions, thoughts. I know this was quick today. The thought was to introduce this, practice it a little bit, hopefully give you these tools. Scott, I did even see that you all are coming back maybe later in the fall. So maybe we can provide some, more resources, tools, talk about how it was implemented. What are you learning? How are you providing this work? Would be happy to do that as well as we walk through that. But any comments or thoughts as we begin to wrap up this session?
I just want to give Jenny some space because I think, Jenny, you had asked a question about what the services are back on that one slide with like things that you could do. Do you want to clarify a little bit about what the question was? So
yeah, I do. So remember back, I guess we were all just kind of coming off of COVID, and there was a course that we could all take. It was the mental health kind of CPR course or whatever. And it kind of like dropped off the radar. I went through the course of it and got my certificate, but as an association, things didn't come back. So those type of services that I think would be helpful for not only you as a person, but also in the positions you are as a director or executive, and gives you a better kind of oversight of when you're dealing with a lot of people who are part-time. This isn't their one-all gig, but you come into a lot of mental issues and health and awareness, and kind of help you guide that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I was just going to comment, Jenny. I know, we have mental health first aid and youth mental health first aid, which is an amazing course and tool. And Jenny, kind of to your point is, we think that's an amazing tool. Feedback we get is it is a 6 to 8 hour course. So everyone can't take it, but who are the individuals in your Y that can take it, right? That can be, some of those spaces. And then how do you ensure your association knows who has those resources, who has some of those skills built up, kind of to continue to build that organizational outlook. So it just doesn't, as you said, Jenny, you just don't want to sitting with one person. And then two is as an alliance, as looking at that, who, across the state of Florida and Puerto Rico has taken mental health first aid? Who are some of your trainers? How are we applying it in different spaces? I think that's a great point.
Thank you.
Very,
All right, well,
questions?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Well, one more thing I want to drop in the chat, and I know Gina might have sent it out to a few people as well, but Our partners at Florida Department of Health have a number of free, the next couple of months have a number of free trainings, both for community partners to get trained in, say, mental health first aid or sources of strength, or a number of different courses, but they also have trainer opportunities. So to become a, to be able to teach it. So all of it is free. I just dropped the brochure in the chat, and I'll encourage you to reach out to Gina or myself if you want to get engaged. But another opportunity that I think our Ys could take advantage of.
I love that, Scott, because, you know, we're providing as many resources as we can, but local resources are so critical because it gives you connections to those that are in your community that are either providers, supporters, connectors, collaborators. So, you know, I think both that's great. I love that you all are promoting that and supporting that.
Are there any other questions for Karen? Well, I just want to comment real quick. Karen, so when I went yesterday, when we had a speaker that had given us a notice last minute, and I was mentally hijacked, emotionally hijacked, and I sent a message into the abyss, and I said to a couple of people, hey, does anyone maybe have some time? And Karen, on a day that she's traveling and on a day that she's probably trying to relax, came and answered the call. So I just want to tell everybody, I want to thank you publicly, but I also want to highlight that, you know, what you did for me and for my mental health was it just took that weight right off my shoulders. I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about presenting this information in the next 24 hours.
No, always happy to help and support, and always great to be with Florida and Puerto Rico. We, you know, just love we love you all down there, and it's great to be with you. So appreciate you all. Thanks,
well,
Lynn.
please
Thanks,
travel
everyone.
safe. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye.
All right, so what we're gonna transition, but we're gonna give everybody a little bit of time since we've been going for about an hour. And so right where we are on our schedule is we have finished the 10 a.m. block and we're about to start the 11 a.m. block. So it is currently 11:04 Eastern time. So we'll give you about 5 minutes, run to the bathroom, get something to eat. We'll get started about 11:10 with the cause-driven leadership approach. So we'll see you back here at 11:10. And grab some food, grab a snack, whatever you need to do to refuel and refill. So we'll see you in a second.
Great job, Scott and Katie.
Thank you.
All right, it is 11:10, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our 11 a.m. block, and I'm going to turn it over to Derek Balderson. So Derek is both on our State Alliance team, but also represents the YMCA of the Triangle with the Southeast Regional Hub. So Derek, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Scott. And thank you everyone for allowing me to share space with y'all today. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so unpacking the cause-driven leadership approach through YUSA's suggestions, recommendations, but also how it plays out in our lives as Y leaders, right? So whether you are supervising multiple departments or you're a frontline staff, each day you're living out our cause, whether it's in a functional aspect, a technical aspect, like teaching a class or leading a group of youth, or even building relationships with members in our community, we are showing up and we're making a difference in other people's lives. And so the cause-driven leadership term, some Ys also refer to it as purpose-driven leadership, but cause-driven leadership is really how are we showing up on a daily basis. And so you probably have your culture card that you were introduced to at some point on your Y journey that's available. And we're going to unpack, how do we show up? How does a Y team leader show up with their personality and voice of the YMCA? So I am Derek Balderson. Yeah, I've gotten to meet most of you. I'm seeing so many familiar names on this Zoom. I have the privilege of supporting leadership development in the Southeast Hub, as Scott mentioned. So Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Puerto Rico are within our hub. And our goal through a lot of the training and leadership development initiatives that we have in an ongoing way is to really help people unpack what leadership is, right? It can seem fuzzy at times, but essentially it's positively impacting others to accomplish a specific goal. You know it when you see it, and you also know it when it's absent in the world around us. And so we're going to try and pinpoint some of the characteristics or behaviors that help us be stronger leaders and understand what we can do to continue growing ourselves so that we're able to show up for others. So some of the things that, as we go through our training today, right, we're going to unpack a little bit of our shared collective vision. And I know that when we talk about why leaders, not many of us get paid a lot of money, but we believe in what we do so much, right? There's an article that Scott and I were bouncing back and forth, and there's a quote that I absolutely loved because it mentioned that inspired, passionate leaders would storm the gates of hell with water pistols for a cause that they believe in. And I know that so many of y'all are showing up on a day in and day out basis because you believe in the good work we do to build stronger community. And so we root it in our mission and cause. And so our mission is to put Christian principles and practices, put Christian principles into practice through programs that build a healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. And that could look different from association to association. And then our cause is our mission in action. That's strengthening the foundations of communities on a daily basis. We also have our areas of focus that provide that purpose and direction, right? We're focusing in on social responsibility, healthy living, and youth development. And then each association sets their own strategic goals and objectives. Our end goal through that purpose and direction is to get to a space in our community where we are delivering measurable impact, right? We're changing lives. We have members that are connected to each other and have that sense of support in the community. Our staff members are engaged on a committed level, right? They're not just showing up and being compliant with what we're asking them to do. They believe in the cause and they're showing up ready to live out the actions and behaviors that we're putting in front of them. And we want to see a strengthened community. And there's a piece in the middle to get there, which is our why leaders, that we really have to lean in and focus on growing and developing. And so we are going to unpack that middle section during our time together. And how can we develop leaders at all levels, starting with ourselves? And so the movement describes cause-driven leadership as our approach to leading in a manner that's going to advance the cause of strengthening community through the work we do in our three focus areas, which are youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And cause-driven leadership has been trademarked by the Y since 2014. We recognize that every day our leaders are showing up and the way they're processing things, right? What they're thinking about, the actions they're taking, and how they're communicating to others puts the needs of their community front and center. And that's going to help drive that desired impact that we have as a charitable organization. Our leaders know that the lasting change that we hope to create in others' lives, personally and socially, only comes about when we work together, right? We're collaborative, we're cooperating with others, we have effective communication, and we're investing in the kids around us, we're investing in our community's health and our neighbors. And so we focus on that collaboration with others as a key skill to develop as we're fostering our own leadership and influence around us. It's not just enough to understand the skills that are required to do our job. We have to understand the larger goal and the impact that we're hoping to make. And that's where the cause comes into the work we do, because we are stepping in as leaders who are here to strengthen our community, not just to get the job done and go home. And we say the term leader in a very broad sense because regardless of the role that you're in, you are making a difference on a daily basis. And so we have that leader level, which are tend to be our frontline employees, but they are still making a difference in our community. And so we use that term to describe our leaders at that basic level frontline staff. And then our team leaders are ones that are supervising and developing others so that they can live out that mission and cause on a daily basis. And so we have up here the YUSA cause-driven leadership journey, and you've got two columns, one on the left and one on the right. On the left, you're going to see who a Y leader is, and on the right, we have what a Y leader knows and does. So we have who we are on one side, but also the behaviors and knowledge that we have on the other. And both are important pathways to being able to grow ourselves and show up well for others. But up at the top, you'll see the diversity wheel, right? And that represents the many different factors that make up and influence ourselves and our individuality. And so we have it kind of with everything else kind of faded out so that we can focus in on this. Every aspect of your diversity is embraced and respected at the Y, just as we embrace and respect the diversity of all the people that we serve in the communities around us. On our cause-driven leadership journey, we have to focus in on who we are as well so that we can know ourselves in order to grow ourselves and show up better for others. And so there are some courses that can help you unpack the dimensions of diversity wheel a bit more. There's the Orientation to Diversity, Inclusion, and Global Training, which is a free e-learning or a workshop that you can take, as well as Dimensions of Diversity, which is a 5-hour course that can be delivered virtually or in person. And we're going to quickly go through some of the key elements of this diversity wheel, also keeping in mind that there are avenues for you to learn even more than we're about to go through in this brief overview. And so as you're looking at the diversity wheel, there are 6 layers to it. In the middle, we start with the individual because we are indivisible from ourselves as an individual. And then the 2 orange rings are both self-identification and collective global context. And so those are additional pieces of the wheel that you can learn more about in those trainings. We're going to focus in on the core dimensions, secondary dimensions, and organizational dimensions today. And so as you look at each of those dimensions, I want to call out that there are blank spaces at the bottom, which we understand that what you're seeing on the screen right now could not fully be comprehensive of what makes you a unique individual. And so there might be something that's listed in a secondary dimension that feels very core to who you are. And so that blank space allows you room to shift things around. As we're looking through, and I'm going to read out because I know that we have a few people joining from phones or devices where they're on audio only. So I am going to lift up some of what we see on this visual. In our core dimensions, we have our sexual orientation and identity, our national origin and birthplace, race, the language that we use, our native tongue, the economic background, our own ethnicity, our heritage and cultural background, our status, whether we have a disability or we are able-bodied, as well as our mental health, our age, our faith, belief, our values and ideology, and our gender or gender identity. And so those are part of those core dimensions that we have. The secondary dimensions that we have are secondary because it describes a bit more the control that we have over them. So it's not necessarily talking about the importance that they play in your life. It's more the control that we have over them in our life. And in that ring, you'll see marital relationship status, parental status, your personal and recreational habits, your status as a military veteran or enrollment in the military, your citizenship status, your appearance and body type, your educational background, the family influence and life experiences that you've had, where you live, your geographic location, and your income and economic circumstances. And then that red ring that we have on the diversity wheel shows how we interact across the organization and part of our identity within the Y movement. And that could be our communication style, where you work, whether you are affiliated with a specific association or even a union, your status of the Y within your community, your experience and functional and your work experiences, where you are specifically focused in, whether it's the content of what you're doing or the area of focus or the field that you're in. You could also be divided by a department group or a division, right? Whether it's you're in the youth development product line, or maybe you're in a specific district in your association. Your status as a manager, your seniority, and your YMCA experience. So all of those play into who you are and how you show up and how you see the world. And so if we're looking at some of these, I only know the world from my lived experiences. And there might be someone who is an aquatics director who has had completely different experiences in life than me. And I'm going to have to work to understand that I only know what I know from my own lived experiences, so I can embrace them and understand what makes them unique and fully collaborate with them. And so a quick activity that we encourage you to do is to look at those core dimensions. And I want you to start making notes for yourself over how you identify or how you characterize yourself in those core dimensions. And I want you to do this from the lens of starting to write out what makes you you in those core areas. And we'll give you about, I'm looking at Scott to make sure I'm not giving up too much time and pushing us over. So 1 minute, we'll give you 1 minute. And for our friends who are joining by audio, I'll just read through the core dimensions again. That's going to be age, ability and mental health, economic background, ethnicity, heritage, and cultural background, your faith, beliefs, values, and ideology, your gender or gender identity, the language use and native tongue, your national origin or birthplace, your race, and your sexual orientation. And so as you've been writing down what makes you you, I want you to think about the people you work with on a daily basis. Maybe the people in the watch party with you right now or other people on the Zoom. And think about how you see the world based off of your own identity and lived experiences. And how are you similar, but also how are you different from the people you work with on a daily basis? And where might we need to use some more empathy to build some bridges and connections with others around us so that we can fully collaborate and cooperate together? And so if you are interested in unpacking those a bit more, I highly encourage you to pursue those 2 learning opportunities that we mentioned, as well as cultural lenses. And so now we're going to start to pivot from knowing ourselves, right? So we have to know ourselves so that we can show up better for others, know our own blind spots and where we have growth opportunities. And we're going to lean into focusing on who we are as a Y leader. And so that starts with understanding our essential values and beliefs. And we have 3 different bubbles up here on the screen that are going to show our values. Those are your own set of principles, and they are considered of great importance to you. They tend to serve as our moral compasses, provide direction on how we tend to lead our lives, and they influence our attitudes and behaviors too. We are our true selves and in our best state of mind to positively impact others when we are in a space that's consistent with our own values. They are often listed as one word, maybe a short phrase like family, friends, loyalty, work-life balance. And then we start to move out to those beliefs. And the definition that we like for that is ideas that you hold as the unwavering truth. Whether you have empirical evidence or not, we could also say that they're judgments that we're making about the world around us. We also need to understand our beliefs because it's not always clear to others or even ourselves why we do what we do, why we feel so strongly about certain things, and why that causes us to behave in a certain way. Yet often we expect others to accept and understand us just as we are, without judgment or having to explain ourselves. So let's think about for a moment how much easier it might be to learn how to best relate to others when you understand why you do what you do. So that's why we say it's really important to understand your own values and beliefs so that you can also understand others. And so we have a quick screen up here that's going to show the difference between our values and beliefs. And so as we are navigating, I want you to start thinking a bit about your personal beliefs and your personal values too. right? So we're going to focus in on the value side more for our quick snippet today, but I highly encourage you to attend Principles and Practices and Leading People to dive into this content a bit more. We have a quick value bracket up here on the screen. And so what we encourage you to do, if you already have identified your personal values, chat about those with a neighbor. If you have not, we encourage you to take some time and identify your personal values. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see some of the examples that we have on this list. And so it's done in a bracket format. This is one example that you can use, and I'm sure that we'll share this out with the slide deck after today if you want to work on this on your own. And so as you navigate those, you're kind of saying, okay, I'm going to rank this one, and that way you can get down to your final set of values. There are also some online tools that you can use as you start to navigate your values activity. And so we are not going to take the time to do this as a group activity right now, but it is an activity that we highly encourage you to do on your own as we have a break today and after we get some of this out. And I will make sure I drop that in the chat, Robert, with the bracket as well. So this is an activity we are going to have you work on right now. And so I want you to complete the statement below. And don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. You're going to write what comes to your head. So finish the sentence, I am blank. And we're going with what just popped into your head. So I'm not giving you much more time to think. I'm just asking you to write down what popped into your head. I am blank. And then you're going to move on to other people are blank and finish that sentence. And then the final one in this activity that we're going to have you write down is the world is blank. And so finish that statement. And look at the statements that you just crafted and how do they make you feel? Because this might help bubble up and help you understand some of your beliefs. These are the things that you hold close and dear true, and those tend to influence the way you see the world and interact with it. When did you first become aware of those beliefs? What experiences have helped shape them? And who in your life holds those similar views? And that's an important reflection to sit with because we're recognizing that even if there's someone on this call who has probably 8 out of the 9 core dimensions that are the same exact as me, right? That one difference could make a huge impact in the way we see, experience, process, and navigate the world around us. And so even with people that you are highly similar to, there could be differences in the way that you're processing and navigating the world. So it's important to reflect on your own beliefs and also communicate about them with others so that they understand why you do what you do. As we continue moving down, and now we're on that right side of that chart that we were going through on that cause-driven leadership journey, we're going to navigate what a Y leader knows and does. And so that's where we start to explore our own strengths, our skills, our own competencies, and our functional expertise to do our job and show up well in our position. And so that's going to be our skills, which are typically related to a single proficiency, right? My Microsoft Excel skills are on fleek, right? Our strengths tend to bubble up from the talents that we have, from our human beings' natural way of doing things, how we process things, our feelings and emotions, and how we relate with others. And so we will navigate some ways to lift up and understand your personal strengths a bit better with assessments as we move through today. And then YUSA has also identified competencies, which are a combination of those skills, knowledge, our attitudes, and habits. And so that helps build our cause-driven leadership competency model, harking back to our quiz from earlier. And so some ways that you can continue to understand yourself would be the Strengths Finders, which is the Clifton Strengths assessment. And to understand your competencies, there's that cause-driven leadership model, which I've seen some links to in the chat box already. And I also want to lean into that model real quick and show you that there are categories. So I know that as we were doing the quiz earlier, a lot of people were picking that 4. Those are the disciplines, which is a broader grouping of the competencies which are listed under the discipline. And we spent some time talking about the values and beliefs because those surround everything we do. We're showing up to work every day with those values and beliefs that we hold. And also our organization has its own values and beliefs that we're working to align ourselves with. There are also some other types of assessments that you could take, your Myers-Briggs, the 16 personalities, right? The predictive index, which is PI. You've got the Enneagram. Okay, you can read it up on the screen. And the 16 personalities. Those are other ways to help you navigate understanding yourself a bit better. And so as we start to know who we are and understand ourselves, our goal is to continue growing, have that growth mindset, and consistently be finding ways to improve and show up better for others and our community. And so that leadership competency model is a tool and framework to help us continue growing and developing ourselves. And so here you'll see the discipline, which building relationships, leading operations, developing and inspiring people, and advancing our mission and cause are the disciplines. And then there are 14 competencies under the disciplines, kind of spread out a bit differently. And we work on developing those through a lot of our learning experiences, but learning is just 10% of the way we develop ourselves and these competencies. Daily on the job, you should be reflecting on how effective you are and finding ways that you can receive coaching from a leader as well, because that's the other 20 and 70% of the work that we do in growing ourselves. Here's an example of the behavioral indicators tied to one of our competencies, right? So the discipline is developing and inspiring people. Oops. The discipline for this one's leading operations. Sorry, for innovation is leading operations, and the competency is innovation. And you can see that we build on these behaviors at all levels. So you can see in the far left column what a leader or frontline team member might need to be doing on a daily basis to grow and develop their innovation skills. As you become a team leader, you have a new set of behaviors that are expected as you're in that role, but you still have to continue doing all of the behaviors of a leader. And so as you continue to grow, the behaviors in the column to the left of you get added in, they don't just disappear. So we continue to grow and build ourselves. You can learn more about that leadership competency model in the Your Career community on Link. I see Scott's been amazing at dropping some of the tools and resources in the chat box as well. So those can help you navigate some of the things we have available to support your journey. And so we've talked a little bit about those leadership levels, and there's also leadership certification. So you can reach certification that match the level that you're in. And so that leader is our frontline team members. You can see the descriptions would be people who are contributing directly to the service to members. Our team leaders are people who are leading a team, a process, or a project with or without supervisory responsibility. So if you have influence over a group of people to reach an outcome or a goal, you are still influencing that team. And so you would be at a team leader level. That could be people at an association office or in a support role. Multi-team leaders typically are supervising team leaders. So they're helping team leaders support their front staff, equipping and developing them. Associate executive directors typically funnel in at that level. And then organizational leaders are providing that strategic vision and leadership to the organization. This is typically C-suite, vice president level positions, or association-wide product line leaders, depending on how your association is structured. And so as you start to understand yourself, you can take the growth pathways that are suggested for each of those leadership levels to help connect you with the resources to build your skills and competencies. Looking back at our cause-driven leadership journey, on the left, you can see who we are as a Y leader. We've talked about our own values and beliefs and evolving those to match the Y's values and beliefs. and using the competency model to grow ourselves. And so going back to those values and beliefs, we need to have some congruency with our own values and beliefs and the Y's values and beliefs in order to be really effective in our role. And so our values and beliefs that you might list out on the left, the Y's are caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. If we have a team member who genuinely does not care about others, then their values might not be so well aligned with the Y, and the way they live out their behaviors might be in conflict with the goals that we have, which is why it's important to keep our values and beliefs at a forefront, right? And at the Y, we believe everyone should be able to reach their fullest potential with dignity. We want everyone to be able to learn, grow, and thrive. And so everyone belongs at the Y, so that's part of our belief. And also that classic red triangle, right? We want to support people's physical well-being. We want to support their mental well-being, and we want to support their own growth and connection spiritually. And so both of those are core to our organization. And while your own beliefs might be a bit different faith-wise, they can still be aligned with the Y's goals. And then we're also going to focus in on, right, we've talked about the 4 disciplines and how to develop our own competencies. So as you're on that journey as a Y leader, continuing to grow and develop yourself, we start to move into a space where we really lean into using this competency model. There are plenty of tools and resources to craft your own development plan, to navigate your learning journey. And we are here to help and support that as well. If you are looking for support with learning navigation or trying to help figure out which courses to take, the Service Delivery Hub and the Alliance partners are both here to help support that. And so I'm sure we'll be able to explain that later this afternoon. We'll talk about some avenues for connecting with and getting support on your journey. And so as you've been growing yourself, there's also the point where you dedicate yourself, right? So you've adapted your values and beliefs and aligned those with the Y. You've also grown your skills and competencies. And now we're at this space where you're also going to give back to others and invest in others. You're taking the values and beliefs that you have personally developed and you hold, you've aligned those with the organization, and you're showing up to work, and your words, your actions are furthering our cause to strengthen community on a daily basis. Because you know why, you know your why at this point, right? You understand your why and you understand what the Y is here to do, and you are in sync with that. And so that shows up as far as celebrating and continuing our culture, right? We need to make sure we are talking about it often. One of Walt Disney, one of the things he said, he was like, I'm a bee going from flower to flower, taking pollen and pollinating these flowers. And then his second thing was, I need to manage like a mother, right? Mothers say their expectations clearly and often. They support you on that journey. They don't want to see you fail, but they're there to pick you back up, tell you how to get it done a different way, and support you on that journey. But articulate it often. We also want to create space for others to buy into and share in that journey. As we're vision casting, there are so many team members with passion. And so giving them the space to collaborate, contribute to our overall visions and goals, and living it out and celebrating those who are living out our cause on a daily basis. And all of that begins with you and how you show up to develop yourself, but also inspire others. That's going to contribute to our cause-centered culture as an organization and help catch that spark for others so they can also show up as cause-driven leaders. And so there is a culture and engagement community as well on Link that has resources to help you really sustain our thriving culture. There's also trainings like the Cause-Driven Tour and Cause-Driven Leader on Duty trainings to help you understand how we live out our culture on a daily basis. And so that Remind and Celebrate is a key part of it, but there are also six different categories that it's broken down into in the framework. And also, how many of us on this call had others developing us, investing in us, and inspiring us? And we've received that magic at some point from a Y leader. I was sitting down when Karen was speaking and making my list, and there are so many people from the Y movement on my list, and that I am so grateful for, that have poured into me. And so I almost feel like I'm indebted to the Y for how much it's done for me, and I have to turn around and invest and develop others because others did that for me. And I'm at that space in my journey where, yes, I'm still receiving from leaders, but also I can invest in others too. And so I'm going to support other people on their cause-driven journey. And that is how the cause-driven leadership journey funnels into and plays right along with our own development and developing others with that leaders at all levels. So maintaining our culture through our words, our actions, and maintaining our cause to strengthen community as a forefront of what we do is one of the key ways that we can get to that measurable impact that we hope to make. There are also some tools available on links that we can go through, because making sure we get the right staff members on our team is important. And so there are tools to help you as you're navigating, supporting people at those frontline positions too, as you're picking the people for your team, but also as you're developing those. So in order to get the right people on the bus in the right seats, there are some tools to support you on that journey, as well as their onboarding experience to make sure they understand the WISE culture and they are bought into our values and beliefs. It's not just, hey, we need you to have the skills to do this job. We want them to connect with why we do what we do and connect their passion and purpose together. And there are also staff development handbooks in the Your Career community on link under the Develop Your Competencies page. There is a page for each of the competencies. And so it will provide some learning opportunities, but also the change leadership at all levels is what you'll see here under behavioral indicators. It is only going to show the behavioral indicators for the level that you have open in the handbook, but that is an actual action button in the PDF to see those behaviors across all levels. And it will also give you some questions to coach yourself or coach others through developing specific competencies. And so as you start to move into different roles throughout your time in the Y movement or at your Y association, there are trainings available to support the competencies that are needed and the behaviors needed at the level that you're serving in. And so we're going to share some of those as we go through today as well for some of the learning pathways. And I appreciate y'all hanging with me as we went through this. We are here to help support that journey. And as Scott dropped through, you are not alone. We're going through this together. And I see quite a few trainers on this call as well. So there are a lot of people who are here to support you and have showed up to also grow themselves, but also invest in you. So thank you all so much for giving me that time to walk through that. And I'm going to yield back to Scott.
Yeah, Derek, we have probably about 5 minutes if we want to take any questions that anyone has, because I know it's a lot. You're going through, you're like processing a lot. So are there any questions that anyone has about like the journey and how we work on leadership development?
I noticed there's a lot of new material in there, Derek. So all that's on the exchange now, because some of those particular goals and different job descriptions and stuff is a little bit newer than what I've seen. So how recent has that been updated?
So some of this was rolled out during the pandemic or right before it. And so a lot of us were focused on operating and changing certain things within our own scope of work that we didn't get to dive into this information as it was being released. And so we're starting to unpack it. Some of it has been new and revised, like the team leader learning pathways were revised towards the beginning of last year and grandfathered into a grace period. So yes, some of it's been out for about a year or two, but yes, it's been tweaking to your point.
Thank you.
The Your Career community on link is a great resource, but also you can shoot me an email and I can help connect you with some of those updates too.
Thank you.
And post this class, the day of learning, what our goal is too is all this, because I know we've got some watch parties. I know we've got some people that are at their desk that maybe are trying to do two things. We're going to put all of the links and all of the resources that people have talked about in like a one pager and send that back out. So like, don't feel like you've got to like, you're getting hit with all these things and you've got to like save them all and do stuff. If you know, please do if you're going to work through them now, but know that we will send that whole like list there. And I'm looking at our Tampa people there because I know having you try to click things and get the things and stuff like that. Hey, Tampa people, is sometimes a little harder.
Okay, thanks. That's appreciative.
Any other questions? Okay, so we are gonna rock and roll to the next thing, which is gonna be looking at our career and learning maps. So what I'm gonna work on is I'm going to share the screen real quick. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about when it comes to, we just learned some of this information, and now, oops, went to the wrong one. And now, like, what do we do with it? So this next topic, we're gonna need like a pen or paper, or if you're more the type of person like me that likes an iPad or some sort of things, but this is going to be us kind of working on your career and learning map through this workshop. So I'll give you a second to grab that. So when we think about a career or learning, think about this as a journey. I know we talk about that a lot, but there are steps in a journey, right? So when you're trying to think about somewhere to go, you got to realize, like, okay, I'm about to take this journey. You have to understand, what do you want to be intentional? What are the things in your life that you want to grow in, and where do you want to go? You also got to grab that compass and make sure you're trying to figure out the best way to get there. You always have passengers. I love the fact that Karen talked about like your board of directors, and we use it in a mental health space because we're going to use it too now in a career space, right? And how do we look at that? And then you always got to have that luggage, right? What do you need? What do you need to bring on that journey? And so the first thing that you have to do when you're looking at careers and learning is you got to do your main job really well. So this is the balance part, right? This is where you have to look at is like, I have to do the job that I'm in really, really, really well. So that way I can start to learn some of those other things. Right? If I start to slack in some of the day-to-day jobs, then I'm learning these great things, but I'm not able to apply them. So that's the first step in all of this, is you got to do your job well. In this too, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I think we framed it up both with the mental health work, and then Derek did a great job framing up how to know yourself, but you've got to do some internal work first. So you got to know yourself. I could not have planned this better to talk about these steps. You got to be authentic. You got to understand, how are you showing up? Your confidence, you have to try to develop that confidence. I know oftentimes we talk about imposter syndrome and that we're showing up into these spaces that we don't feel qualified for. You are you. You can control some of that, and you can really help start to build some of that confidence up. And then we have to check on our health. So I'll use a good example for me is sometimes I take on a lot, right? And I'm trying to think through it, and I sometimes forget about I'm only human, and that I have to check on myself and on my health. We also have to do good work. And so when you think about your career and you think about your leadership and your learning, you have to take care of people. And we use this term a lot in MLD spaces, but a lot in HR. You have to be radically human, right? We work with so many amazing humans at the Y, both people that come into our doors as members, but also the people that build the culture for the people, the members, right? And those are our staff. And so when we build those when we build a reputation, we want to keep some of these things in mind. This is really what goes into having a really good reputation. You solve problems, you're reliable, you're developing others, and you're not only developing yourself for whatever comes next, but you're also bringing people along. And the other piece that I think I see a lot of people struggle with this now is making sure that your reputation and your work aligns. So the words that come out of your mouth are also the behaviors that are, and those things are aligning. And so when we look at this, we look at how do we track, communicate, and monetize our accomplishments? So if you haven't done this in a while, I would not recommend you rushing the next time that you see a job you want to apply for, that you're like, okay, let me think about all of the things that I have going on in my life, and how do I say I did a really good job at this thing? Start now. start looking at like, what are the things that you value? What are the things you're bringing to the why or to the organization? And then you also look at, what have I done and how do I put it into like those business terms, right? How do I start to look at the things that I've done in my roles, in my past roles, and my current role that really like impact the bottom line, or look at revenue, right? Or expenses and things like that. Because although we don't always like to talk about the fact that the why is a business, we do have to at least understand that those two things are in tandem. The really great work has to be balanced with the money that comes in to do the great work, right? Those two things come hand in hand. And when one or the other become too much, we're out of whack. And so take that second, take that the next, I know we finish at 2, maybe you take the rest of the day to look at, how do you really start to look at the things that you've done really well. The other piece is to remember that it's not all about you. When you're looking at your career and you're looking at your learnings, that you have built up your reputation with other people, right? It's not just you. So when we look at this, we want to innovate, we want to evolve, we want to look at emerging needs, right? So looking at the outside and coming in is really important. One of the questions that stuck with me ever since I was a teen is this one right here. How do we or I stay relevant while meeting a need and fulfilling our mission, right? How do I work on the things that are most needed in an organization or in a role or at a branch or in a department, that really fulfill the work, that there's a need and that it's fulfilling the work of our mission? And then I want you to think about something, and you're going to reflect here for a second. When is the last time that you did something for someone else? And I'm not talking about those like transactional things, like, hey, can you update this flyer for me? Or can you cover my MOD shift, right? Those are very transactional, but like, when's the last time that you did something for someone else? So I want to think back to what Karen did for us, right? She said, yeah, I'm traveling today. I think she's going to the Northeast somewhere. And she said, but I also know the feeling that you have when someone cancels last minute. And so I'm going to show up and help you, right? Those are things like that you really did for someone else. The next thing is, you're kind of currently doing it right now. When you think about your career and you think about learning, you have to have that like really diverse and really large network. I will say personally, this is one of the things I value. Is I realized really quickly that the why, or in most organizations, are relationship driven organizations. I mean, heck, the government is that way. Every company I've ever worked for is that, and the why is no different. So having those people in different pockets or different spaces is really, really important when you're looking at what comes next. So YPN is a perfect example. Looking at your peer communities or employee resource groups. I mean, I look at some of the faces on this screen, and I probably either met them first in an employee resource group, or maybe at a conference like Emily or Remily. Or maybe I met them for the first time because someone passed on their contact information and I picked up the phone and called. It's also important when you look at your network that you don't just focus on why stuff. The why is a great organization, but we don't just rely on the why when we look at our network. So people that are working at Chamber of Commerce or working in local municipalities or local nonprofits are huge. I often hear people that have gone through like leadership, insert your county, insert your city, whatever it may be, like one of those programs. And actually that's the exact reason for those programs, is to build the network for someone. And then the last part I really want to highlight is the last thing that's bolded there, which is maintaining relationships outside your organization. So oftentimes we get so bogged down with like, we just got to get this thing done, we just got to keep going, but your relationships outside of an organization can both help you in your role, but also help you in whatever comes next, whether that is with the why or it's outside the why. very similar to what Karen talked about, right? You look at your who's wearing your shirt, right? Who's got like your name plastered on the back, who is really trying to help you with this. And so we tend to, there's a number of ways you can frame this, but we tend to look at really four groups of people, right? Who's that sponsor or that ally, right? And that could be an ally for you personally. It could be an ally because of a dimension of diversity. It could be any piece of that, but those sponsors or allies are gonna voice and lift you up when at tables and things that you're not at. So I think about like a board of directors meeting. You know, if you've got an ally there that's really like singing your praises, that's a great person to have that's wearing your t-shirt and beating your drum. Then you have mentors. So mentors advise, right? They look at how things could be done based on their experience. Mentors sometimes can be biased, right? Which is okay. They're there to like lift you up and be your cheerleader, right? Then you also got coaches. So coaches are really going to be there to bring out potential, right? They're going to look at what's within you and trying to unlock it. So I think Derek had mentioned, like, this is like what Disney said about moms, right? You set the expectation and you know that the person can get there, but you can't do it for them. So you have to unlock that potential and really coach them up to it. But they do not always give advice, right? So that's the difference between mentors and coaches. Is mentors are like, they can give advice and they can say, oh, well, why don't you try this thing? Coaches really aren't there to give you like, oh yeah, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be just fine. They're there to question you to unlock it out of you. And then the last person that's got to wear your t-shirt is your supervisor, right? You can't do this work without your supervisor. And so looking at like confirming current capabilities or experiences, we talked a little bit about the 70-20-10 model. So 70% of what you learn is on the job, right? Your supervisor is going to help unlock some of that. They'll give you stretch assignments, or they'll give you opportunities to sit in a meeting that maybe you don't know a whole lot about, right? Those are the people that can help you around that. And then as you're exploring your career, you want to connect your what with your why. So I'm going to take a second, and in the piece of paper you got, or in the iPad, or if you're going to type it on a Word document, I want you to reflect a little bit on this. So why did you come to the Y? Why do you stay at the Y? And if you've left and come back, or if you left and you're a volunteer now, or you're retired, why did you leave? And maybe what brought you back if you did come back? What about one positive thing that you believe that the Y does? And then maybe reflect on those last two questions. What makes you most proud of the work you do for the Y? And how does the Y connect you with your personal passion? So I'm going to pause and let you kind of reflect there. Okay, so hopefully you can still work through this, but we're gonna keep going on this. So now it gets into the science, right? The science of mapping out your career. We've talked a little bit about why and exploring it, but let's look at some of the science. So I want you to put your CEO, your captain, or your pilot hat on here. When you look at your career and you look at your learning, it's your career and your learning. It's a journey for you. And you get to be the captain or the pilot or the CEO, whatever you want to give, the title you want to give yourself, to say, where do you want to go? So where do you want to go? So to start with that, you have to say, where are you on the journey right now? So maybe put into your notebooks or in your piece of paper, like, let's just do a reflection here. Are you where you want to be, or are you where you need to be right now? So that could be because of circumstance. That could be like, hey, I really need to do this role right now. Maybe you're looking at, how does your current position preparing you for your ultimate goal? So as you're starting to think about where you want to go, is this position really, like, is it helping you prepare for that? And what can you take, or what can you learn from that? And then that last one is what are you learning in that role? Oftentimes when we look at careers and stuff, we look at, like, how do you climb, like, go up, but up doesn't always mean growth, right? Learning could mean growth in a career. And if you're in a job that you're learning a lot and you're really diving into it, that could be a lot. The next thing I want you to ask yourself is, do you have everything you need for the journey? So have you made a list of the thing, like what books you're reading? Have you talked to your, like, mentors or a coach around, like, where do you want to go? To Derek's point earlier, have you taken the leadership competency assessment or any type of an assessment to know where you stand? Have you started to research potential roles that could take? And have you maybe taken a training on that? Do you have all of those things ready for the journey of your career or of the next learning? So now we're going to figure out what is the final destination. So I want you to think, if you look at your time, where is the final destination? And we're going to ask, how do we get there? So you're going to do a little bit of math. Please, I hope this is the easiest math you'll ever do, but you can also grab a calculator if you need to. And I want you to subtract your current age from your desired retirement age. And if you don't know, for this activity, you gotta kind of, like, pick like approximately what age you want to retire. And then you're gonna take that and divide it by 5 to get the number of career moves that you have if you plan on moving in 5-year increments. You plan on moving in 2-year increments or 3-year increments. That's where you're gonna change that number. So as an example, if my retirement age was 67, my current age was 62, that would give me 35. And then I would divide it by 5, and then it would give me the number 7. So that would be the number of moves that I potentially could make. So I'll give everyone a second to either jot it down or put those numbers in. So now you're going to ask yourself, how many moves, if I was using a 5-year increment, can you make before you should be at the final destination, whatever you're dreaming of? So how many moves? Then you're going to ask yourself, well, what might be the next logical step in that? So we're going to look at some examples. So if I'm now, say I'm going to retire at 38 or at 68. Well, I wish I could retire at 38. At 68, and my current age is 38. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to say 30 years, 30 divided by 5 is approximately 6 moves. So you've got some examples down there. And I wanted to make sure that we give you examples of multiple career paths, because a career path does not mean like this, then this, then this, then this, and all of a sudden you're going to be whatever your end goal is, right? Sometimes it's chunky, like sometimes it's all over the place. So the first one maybe shows like an aquatics director on a path to the executive, to a CEO, right? And so you can see that one is actually 7 moves. So that one, you might have to maybe spend time in a role a little bit smaller number of years. The next one looks at maybe if you want to like specialize in something. So sorry, I'm using aquatics. That's where I got started. I'm a little biased towards that. But so then you're going to look at aquatics and say, okay, if I want to stay in aquatics, what might be the trajectory there? And so you can see that I might do aquatics, I might expand my horizon, and then I might go back to specializing in aquatics at different size Ys. And this is not definitive, right? So you don't always have to move from small y to large Y. Some people move from a large Y to a small y, right? That's okay. And then the last one is going to look at like, you really enjoy the member side of things, or you really enjoy some of that. And those career trajectories don't mean that like you're always moving upward. Sometimes it might be you move from one Y to a different Y, or you move from like, if you're a program director, you move from like doing sports to say wellness, right? Or things like that. And so now what you're doing is, as you're starting to think through that, you want to determine the starting point, the final goal, and then how are you going to connect those points from point A to point B, looking at some of the skills and the competencies that those roles in the future you might need. And then what you'll do is you'll look at all of the different goals that will get you to that point, from point A to point B. So here's an example, right? So maybe step 1, you're going to look at self-evaluation. You're going to look at understanding yourself. Maybe you do a skills assessment. Maybe you start to talk to a career counselor or a coach around that. Maybe you identify that to get to that next role, that you need a higher level of education, or you need a certificate program, or you need a license, like a SHRM license, right? That right there is step 3. It's looking at, what do I need to obtain maybe to get that? Step 4 is starting to go through that training and get those certifications. Step 5 is maybe you start to like volunteer or do an internship in that space, or maybe you start to shadow someone. So if someone's in a role, and maybe asking if like you could do like a day in the life with them, right? And walk around with them to understand it. You want to build a good resume. And remember what I said before around that is, don't wait until you got to write a resume to understand all of the things that you're doing that should be amplified or shown on a resume. And then we also talked about building that network. The last step is to apply for the job. And sometimes you might have to apply for a job multiple times to get that job. Especially when you start to get into like C-suite roles, right? You're looking at multiple panels, usually volunteers that you're going through the interview process with. We talked a little bit about this, but it's also reflecting on who is on your personal board of directors. So those are unpaid guides, unpaid career coaches. Sometimes you might be able to afford a career coach, right? And do that. But this board is those strong personal and professional people that are going to lift you up, challenge you, and ultimately have the goal that they want you to succeed. Those are going to be the people that are going to challenge you. And my favorite is that last one. Those are some of the people that are going to look at you and be like, okay, I think you're being a little unreasonable here, right? Or let's back this up a little bit. These people are also the people that are going to look at your strengths and help you identify those positions that maybe aren't on your radar. They also might help you look outside of the industry. So maybe you aren't going to stay with the Y forever, and they're going to help you look at that next thing. So grab that piece of paper right now, look at it one more time, and I want you to look at who's on your board of directors. And this might be the same people that you wrote down with the activity with Karen, but it also might be different, right? Because one of them was working on like my mental health. And I will say for me personally, there are people in my life that I will go to when I'm struggling with my mental health. And then there are also people that I will go to like if I am doing that, but it's in a work setting, right? And sometimes those overlap, right? Sometimes that person sits on multiple of those boards. So once you've thought about that, who's missing from that board? Are you missing a coach? Are you missing a sponsor, an ally? Someone that's going to speak up in that meeting that you're not in? And then I want you to look at your board and say, who has ultimate veto power or other special votes on your board? So I look at this like if you've got a family, right? And maybe one of the next career moves means that you're gonna jump and you're gonna move or relocate. Maybe you're gonna give special veto power to your family for one reason or another. And so as you reflect, and I'm going to make sure that we have some room for questions before we take a break, and we'll take a little bit lengthier of a break before Lynn talks a little bit about our strategic plan and the state of the state. But I do want to open it up and say, what questions do you have? Like, what are you going through right now that you want to chat through? Any questions? And I'll stop sharing so we can look at each other. Okay. We also talked a lot about that in the sense of a career, but it can be used for learning too, right? Your career is like that benchmark, but learnings help you get there. And so you can take that same equation and say, when's the last time that I really learned something? And it could be something completely outrageous that has nothing to do with your job, but you might be able to pull some of those experiences out of the learning and apply it to your job. And so if there's no questions, what we're going to do is it's 12:15. We are going to come back here at 12:30. So we'll give you, actually, we'll do, sorry, I think we gave a little bit longer. So we'll do 12:40. So 12:40, we'll be back here and we will turn it over to Lynn to talk a little bit about the state of the state. And I have to say 12:40 Eastern because we do have one Y that's in Central Time. So I always got to remember that. We'll see you back here at 12:40. All right, so hopefully you had a good break. We are going to move into the next thing, and I would love to introduce Lynn Wilcox as the president and CEO of the Florida State Alliance of YMCAs. She's going to give you a little bit about the state of the state and talk a little bit about our strategic plan, and we'll make sure we have time for questions after that. So Lynn, I will turn it over to you, and I'll drop the full strategic plan in the chat for you.
How's everybody doing today? Pretty good? Can you all hear
And-
me and see me? And
Yeah,
see the
Lynn,
screen?
you're
Yes.
sharing the wrong screen though. You're sharing the data.
All right, hold on just a second. I will take a book from, I'm an amateur at this, or it's amateur hour. You would think I'd be more practiced. How about now?
There you go.
Yay, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you all for attending today, because I know that everybody's time is precious, but this is our first stab at this with the partnership with YPN. Hold on just a second. Let me get that off so you can't hear my bad accent and see it verbally on the bottom of the page, as long as nobody needs that. So I'm the CEO of the Florida State Alliance of YMCAs. I have the pleasure of working with all 16 YMCAs, anywhere from your CEOs. And then we also have the privilege, I can't even say that word right now. Anyway, the opportunity to partner with YPN on days like today, as well as some of the initial peer networks, everything else. But I wanted to give everybody kind of an overview of our state, right? So here is a map showing you all the heads, the associations basically, but we also have 128 locations. This is our YMCA CEOs. We have our brand new one who actually is on the call with us today, Natalie Dial from the YMCA of West Central. Thank you, Natalie, for being here today. As well as I know we have Charlene Lyons on the call. Did I miss any other CEOs that are on the call?
Cindy also might be on the call as a group.
Okay, Cindy may be doing a viewing party. So Cindy, thank you for being on the call today. So I want to kind of tell you who we are. So we provide, and our main goal is to provide one unified voice to all the YMCAs in the state of Florida. So what we do is, and we're going to go over some of our strategic plan at a very high level today, is we do what's called real-time strategic planning throughout the state. Some of you are very familiar with it because we've gone through it with your association, but it's an ongoing strategic thinking process. So this is just our first initial baseline to get started with, and then it will continuously be adjusting throughout the years, and we'll be refreshing it periodically each year and each month actually. So to look at it though as one state, we have 128 membership centers, 25 early learning centers, and 51 charter school program sites, and then 237 before and after school care sites, 4 overnight camps. We have 2 overnight residence camps, and then 2 outdoor centers. One might be on the rebuild that's in the Southwest. And then we have 201 swimming pools. So we're the largest providers of swimming pools in the state, community pools. Our board of directors are made up of not only YMCA CEOs, but also of some volunteer leaders. So our volunteer leaders are Mac Becker, who's from Clearwater, who runs a employment agency, Pride Staffing. We have Frank Fry, who's in Sarasota, who's a retired like 40, I think he's been in the movement 47 years now. And then, and Bob Busing, who's our lawyer on the board, as well as one of our founders of the Alliance. And as you can see, they also have their roles. If they are chairing something, there's a role behind that. Gene Jones is our chairman of the board, and Cindy Love is our vice chair, along with Bob Busing, our governance chair. Scott Goyer from Suncoast is a public policy chair, and Michael Boldenhausen is the treasurer. And thank you, Charlene and Cindy, for being on the board. How we came about doing our strategic plan for the entire state was this is our timeline. I'm just going to highlight some things. We actually put a survey out to the CEOs. Then we also asked during the peer networks, we also asked you might not have realized it, just some strategic questions to get feedback to help us develop the plan. So in general, our mission is the same as yours as well as nationals. But our vision is to really leverage the collective strength to enrich the quality of life for every Floridian, no matter what that looks like and what scale it's on. And then the vision is what our future is. And then our impact statement, which is our current, is we will inspire to generate leaders and develop prospering lives to support our communities. How's everybody doing after lunch? Do we need to take a break and everybody stretch? Is everybody good? Okay, we're going to keep going then. So the purpose and why, we have two organizations within the Alliance. One is a 501c4, and that is basically our advocacy and our public policy division, which is basically helps us, and some of you have been a part of it and attended advocacy days as well as your local level. Every day you're advocating for the Y, either with your school districts. Anytime you talk with somebody, you're basically advocating. But we have to have a 501c3 in order for us to seriously lobby the legislature legally. Then we have a 501c3, which is actually where all the operations and the program support and delivery happen. And so that's also where all of our networking and all of our direct service delivery sits under also. And so what our big thing too is really collaborating and bringing you all together to identify consensus that we can actually move on and lift up as an organization. So an example is, let's say the safety around water and the water watchers coming out of South Florida. Now we all use that as a prime example of how that little part was lifted up and moved into the statewide realm. When we looked at the strategic plan, it went into three different kind of buckets after we heard from everyone. Is that, first of all, that we really needed to, as a state, strengthen our advocacy. We needed to help educate you on what advocacy looks like and really help develop, and Scott's really leading this charge around what it means to manage the legislative process as well as make changes in the laws. We had a real big success around that, which you guys will feel in 2024, where we will go to there will be a coordinated effort at the state level to share background checks. So you won't have to do multiple background checks when you're hiring staff. And then we also wanted to align some of our task forces and develop some task forces to have representation on the committees and caucuses and other groups that influence policy. So that will be coming down the pike in the first and second quarter of next year. And then Prospering Wise in the state alliance, meaning that helping the Wise be sustainable as well as the state alliance. So one of the things that we're doing, and South Palm Beach is helping and First Coast is helping us pilot this, is that we've got a membership project going on right now where hopefully we'll have kind of some shared practices and some standard practices of excellence that we can put into a peer-to-peer visit document to where you all can share and go visit each other and look at it to see who's doing what and who's doing things really well. And we can start to learn from each other on the practical one-on-one visits. We already started doing that with child protection. And we also started it with aquatics, and then unfortunately COVID slowed that down. So ideally what will happen is we'll have some shared information that will help us have a standard for all of our different program areas. And then increase and strengthen our network. And that's including staff and volunteers. So that's one of the reasons why we're such close partners with YPN, is to help strengthen that network and that involvement. And that's the other reason why we're doing the peer visits too, is just to get you guys visiting each other, get to know each other. And then we also do and promote like shared services, collaborations between YMCAs and community partners. So we'll continue to do that and look for ways that we can bring partnerships in and out of the Y together, just to make us stronger as a movement. And then we have some standard statewide impact and initiatives. And so one of them, and one of our big goals is just to enhance the quality and participation in our statewide initiatives and programs. Some of those are teen programs, which is anywhere from youth in government to change makers to, we have a new one with Y Core, and then also Y Reads, which a lot of you realize that now we do summer enrichment programs and enrichment programs during the year. So you don't have to do a full Y Reads site. Any way we can to support creating literacy opportunities and development within your Ys is a part of it as well. Then we also have the safety around water, which a lot of our Ys, we had 2 million this year from the legislature, which has really enhanced our ability to reach more populations and your ability to reach more populations. And then we also will have community integrated health that we're working on too. And that's basically anywhere from evidence-based programs to non-evidence proven based programs like, gosh, can't think of one right now. Sorry, that's terrible. Anyway, but we have some of those floating around. Self-monitoring blood pressure, diabetes prevention, are those evidence-based? Self-monitoring blood pressure actually is one of those non-evidence-based. And then identify new opportunities for statewide programs through leveraging our synergies from you all. So really taking some of the things that you're doing really well or that could be duplicated at other Ys and sharing that amongst each other. So just real quick, I'm not gonna read through these, but we also know that if we don't put strategies or actions behind some of these goals, then they won't happen. So these are just this real quick sample. I'll take a second and read it on how we're going to achieve it. Through Prospering Ys and state alliances, we shared that information on the last one around just collective and defining, cultivating, promoting services. It's just another way of looking at it. So a quick question to everybody on the call. I want you guys to take a second, and since we've kind of been doing that, where you kind of, the first part of today was really focusing in on what you can do to help yourself. Now I'm going to be a little selfish. I'm going to ask you guys to get ready in your chat. And if you're in a viewing party, just kind of take it down and put it in a chat all together. But think about if we didn't have any boundaries and there were no restrictions on resources, what you would envision your communities and your Ys to be. So we're going to do a little dreaming real quick. And as you think about those, just drop them in the chat. If there's anything that you think as a state we should be doing or could be doing or could in 5 to 10 years make a difference in the world we live in Florida. And it can be anything. Leveraging more youth to do community-based health work. Every child learns to swim before age 4. Oh, hallelujah. Yes, Charlene. If we didn't have to worry about funding or manpower or anything else, what could you dream that we could do for your community? A network of birth to young adult wraparound development education centers. Thank you, Robert. Nice. Wouldn't that be amazing? You know what I'd like to see is every person healthy. Let's see. Fill the gaps of medical and senior services. Thank you, Ricky. Eliminate all chronic diseases and have no more social determinants of health. Connie, thank you, thank you. Completely agree. Well, listen, if you think of them as we continue on, just drop them in. And if you don't mind, just putting Florida first and then putting it down there. And thank you, Gina. Let's see. Do more upstream work versus reactive after the fact in our communities. Robert Griggs, be the voice for our marginalized people. Nice. So like I said, as we're going through the rest of the day, it's more looking at the global picture. If you have anything else or thoughts come to mind from some of the other presentations, just drop Florida and then what your idea would be. So thank you. And thank you those that are tagging the ones that are said. That's fantastic. Deeply appreciated. Also, thanks to each and every one of you for the work that you do every day. There's no bigger warriors than you on the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. I do want to, we've got about 4 minutes before it's at 1. So I want to, are there any questions about the strategic plan or the timeline, the process, or anything from anybody in the audience?
Provide everything we have to offer to more of our service area. Nice. Any questions? I think that's on the agenda later today too, is to ask anything.
All right. I just want to get confirmation. Can you all see my screen? Because it says it's paused on my end.
No, it's actually a black screen.
I don't know what is up with the screen sharing today, but let's try this again. All right, there we go. Now we're cooking. Okay, so where we are right now is it is close to 1 o'clock. So we are going to move into the state of the chapter. And so what we'll be covering kind of the next hour is we've got one of our board members from the YPN's chapter 27 that will be here. Then we're going to do an ask us anything question opportunity. So we'll have some people in different roles and things like that let's ask questions, let's get involved, and then we'll save the latter part of the hour for all of the different things that you can get connected in. Remember when we talked about like building your network and looking at different volunteer opportunities or learning, so we'll talk through that. And then we'll save the last probably 10-15 minutes to look at like some things that we could celebrate in 2022, right? And then we'll close this out by 2 o'clock. So I'm going to introduce Jamie Rusnick right now. And so for those that don't know Jamie, Jamie has been a pivotal part in looking at the YPN chapter 27 over the last 3 or 4 years now. She was only supposed to serve 2. We had a small little pandemic. She served like 3 or 4 years now as the chair. And she's now passing it over to Robin Ostrom, who is from Tampa. But this is one of her passion. So I get to introduce her now to talk a little bit about what YPN is.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, it seems like it's been 4 years. Thank you all for being here. Like Lynn said, we wouldn't be here, without you all and your ideas. And I hope you are enjoying your Friday. So I'll be kind of a little quick on the state of the chapter so we can get you on. Want to talk about just an overview of the why, kind of what we've done, what we're doing, and where we plan to be. So again, on your screen right now, our board members, you may know a lot of them. Thank you to all of you for for your help and your leadership in this volunteer role, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do all of these great things or your ideas. So just kind of an overview of our chapter and how it functions. We've talked a lot about this already and the things that Scott had mentioned and Lynn, but connecting, learn, and lead. Connecting with your peer-to-peer through our peer community groups that we have is a great way locally, regionally, and nationally to do this. And at national events, most of you hopefully are familiar with our peer community groups, aquatics, membership, out of school time, and such. Learn, right? We're going to learn, we're going to train to help you develop as a Y professional. We offer all kind of development e-learnings, chapter events, events like what we're on today to just get little pieces throughout the day of things and lead. Your membership is always with you. It develops, refines your leaderships, and gives you the opportunity to network. And if there's anything that I could say is to grow your network in the Y. This is one of the biggest things that this chapter can help you do, and even outside of our chapter with the other chapters as well. Some of the highlights, I'm not going to touch on all of these because I'm sure Scott will share the slide deck with you all, but in 2019, we launched ERGs across the state. We implemented in 2020 when we had to a short-term operating plan to help serve our Y leaders across the chapter. We've hosted our first virtual conference, which was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But we made it through that. And also just, our statewide marketing and communications team, they really rallied together to help run a joint marketing initiative for all of our Ys. We also did a joint membership across the state of Florida, thanks to our marketing and communications peer community group, putting assets together for us. And that was a really big help that took a lot when we've lost resources. We really worked together to do that. So I'm very proud of those accomplishments. We hosted our YPN and Remley together. Remley was here for the first time in 2021. We're also in 2021 establishing, a governance committee in our YPN chapter. There's a few things that we, kind of decided we wanted to add into not only what the Y of the USA suggested us do, but we're kind of just adding some things in. Obviously, our in-person retreats that we have been doing in 2020 led us to here today with you all in the car, and really going to focus this year on building our board development side of YPN. So how our structure is here in chapter 27, we have a governance board, finance, communications, engagement, professional leadership and development, conferences, peer communities, ERGs, recognition, and our emergency assistance fund. So some of the things that we came out of our priorities for the chapter in our governance was governance, communication, and engagement. So our big thing was we want to establish a strong governance board of governance committee in our chapter. Another big focus, and we've been talking about this, is how to include our part-time staff. We want our part-time staff to be involved just as well as we are, because they are our future leaders. And what's the plan and what does that look like for us to encourage our Ys around to develop a policy around this to help support our part-time staff. And again, we're going to re-educate on what YPN is and the benefits. I think it's just kind of out there sitting, and we need to, in our communication, ramp that up a little bit. Obviously, we're going to hold in-person board planning sessions each year. We've been successful over the last year or two doing this. And then, we're going to just kind of design a process for board recruitment and members and onboarding and welcoming. So I don't know, is Tammy Miller still on the call? I was kind of hoping she would be. I saw her earlier, but I wanted to kind of have her or Scott, if you would mind jumping in on our peer community priorities a little bit for us, since you guys lead those.
Sure. So for peer communities, we established them. We started off with, I think it was like 4 or 5 in 2020 or 2019. 2020 we went to 10 and really started to get them up, and then 2023 we expanded into 2 more areas and soon to be a 3rd. So some things that are highlighted on the screen. One of the 3 that we added this year is diversity, equity, inclusion peer community, and then an exec operations associate exec group. And then come August 2023, we will launch a property and facilities peer community. And peer communities are designed to be functional areas that allow people to be pulled together to talk about like shared practices around some challenges that they face, share a little bit about like celebrations around those things. And then some things that we started to do is we aligned some of the peer community schedules. So this was the first year that in January of 2023, we could publish a calendar that had all of the peer communities and the dates and times that they can. And we'll make sure we drop that in the chat as well when we're done with this slide. So that way you can join those. And those are open to everyone unless for some reason it's a closed peer community. Like, so based on sensitive data, like our CEO peer community is closed, and then our finance and HR peer communities are closed, but the rest of them are open. So if you have either you work in that function, or maybe you have a desire to learn more about those functions, those are 2 perfect reasons on how you could join a peer community. The last part that we really tried to do is refine an onboarding for peer community leaders and put a little bit more structure and time. So that way the peer community didn't say yes, someone didn't say yes, I'm gonna do it, and then they were put on doing hours on hours and on hours of organizing. So we tried to limit that as much as possible. And so now we're looking at how do we grow, how do we develop, how do we encourage participation, because these are free resources for everyone, right? It's just going to be time in your day to, which I know is a lot to ask, but to join a peer community, right? But the knowledge you get out of it is going to be immense.
Thank you, Scott. Our next priority is our employee resource groups, and the key one right there at the top: establish a strong lead and co-leader for our ERGs. Ben, are you on the call? Would you like to come off mute and talk about ERGs for us for a little bit?
Hey, I sure can. Hello, everyone. Hopefully everyone's enjoying our time today. So quickly, our ERGs, we have launched our statewide ERGs, and it's a multi-year process, as we all know, but we're really excited about it. We've secured leads, which are our chairs and co-chairs for each statewide ERG, and we have a goal to launch some type of engagement or initiative or event this year. We have a lot of interest. Over 100 people have registered or signed up to be part of an ERG or multiple ERGs that we're finding. So we're really exciting to really pilot this thing. Our primary long-term goal is for statewide ERGs to really be like a guiding group to the local ERGs. So that was a lot of the feedback that we received. So, it's going to be a fun journey and a fun experience, and we're excited. And we're selfishly, I'm really excited just to be part of an amazing group of leaders, especially with a large percentage of the group serving on the national steering committees for their respective ERGs. So we will get some action this fall as everyone gets to the summer, and we plan accordingly. And we're really excited to see how this all blossoms into a beautiful flower to engage our staff across the state. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership. Next is probably going, I do believe, our professional leadership. So we haven't heard enough from Scott today. So Scott's going to take the lead on this one for us as our board chair of this. We don't currently have one.
Yeah. So this has a lot of opportunity, and we started with this day of learning, right? So you'll see some familiar things, but some of the things we realize is that we are going to look at launching a cohort of the Rising Stars program or Emerging Leaders program. So anyone new or new to the Y, or younger staff to help develop them and kind of what I would say is like get on the highway and express them into the things that the Y offers. We're also looking, similar to what Jamie had said, is a strategy around part-time staff, right? How do we really look at the barriers that exist for people to join some of these programs, or some of the opportunities, or spend time to do the learnings and leadership development that they want? We're also looking at how do we maybe offer like a quarterly, a monthly NEO or orientation for people just to meet others and learn about each other. And so we'll love your feedback on that when some of the survey stuff comes out for this day of learning. We're also looking at how do we work with HR departments and local Ys to create example like career paths. So I think sometimes maybe in the career mapping, when we talked about that, it's a little daunting because you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what jobs or what opportunities are available, how do you actually like plan some of that out? So we're going to spend some time diving into this. And then the last thing that we've done a few times is a mentor program. So we've done it where it's been a formal mentor pair up at the beginning of the year, and you have a year that you get mentored by someone. But we've also been able to do some like pop-up events. So I think back in 2022, we did a pop-up event in February that was just, it was an hour and 30 minutes, and you jumped on, you were paired up with someone, and you had an hour or so to meet with them and ask them questions and really get some mentoring, which was a really great event. So this is like probably one of our biggest opportunity areas. And, you know, we're obviously, Jamie's going to talk about later, but we're going to be recruiting for the board. And so this might be an area that you want to help spend your time in.
Thank you, Scott. Up next is recognition. So Mike is our recognition chair for the YPN board. Are you still on the call, Mike?
Hi, Jamie. Yep. Thank you. I kind of say a lot of the same things. There's going to be some things coming up later today that I'll talk about here, and some things that we've already started. But, spreading our recognition really beyond just the awards that we've typically seen each year that we normally give at the conference, but looking at ways that we can not only recognize other people for awards they've gotten, whether nationally or in other ways, but also encouraging your local associations to have very similar awards, and maybe a standardized way that we can, again, make sure that more people are being recognized for the work that they're doing as they're developing, and for the great work they're doing in their communities. Striving for 100% of our associations to be involved in this recognition process. So I did a stats over the last 4 years. We had just shy of 100 nominations. That really only equaled 11 of the associations, and some of those have combined now since then. So there's a lot of opportunity for us within this group to then work with our YMCAs to encourage people to lift others up, our peers, those that we lead, those that lead us, everyone. If they just thought of one person to recognize, we could meet that goal. So I think that's one of the biggest ones that I still would love to see us move the needle on. More people to help in this process. So as Jamie said, we'll be looking to get more people involved in the board. And one way you can get involved, even if it's not necessarily at a board level, but maybe you have time to give to the committee, is to help us with this recognition committee, not only in helping to review and award those recognitions, but also help us really work on some of these items to take this up to the level that we want and spread it more. Working with your peer communities and ERGs to, again, get their input and their ideas about who we can recognize and how we can recognize people. And then again, kind of spreading this back out to the associations. How do we work with your local leaders, your HR departments, probably in particular, to, again, encourage, develop strong recognition programs? Because we hear from a lot of people that maybe they're not aware of a recognition program at their Ys. And so how can we be the leaders with that in promoting that?
Thank you, Mike. Delonix, are you still on the call with us? Would you like to talk about our emergency assistance fund?
Yeah, sure. Delonix Cortez from the Suncoast YMCA. The Emergency Assistance Fund is a fund that is funded by staff across our state. And it exists to help full-time or part-time staff. And the only requirement to be able to get into and be eligible for our emergency assistance fund is to be a YMCA employee for 6 months. And so it's open to both part-time and full-time staff across our state. And basically the function of the emergency assistance fund is if there is some sort of life altering event, whether it's a car accident and you need help with medical fees, or in our state a natural disaster like a hurricane, the emergency assistance fund is a fund our fellow staff members can apply for and get approved for, to help them with bills, to help them with things to keep them keep the things that are important to them. So, last year, Florida, our chapter, we had a lot of need when it came to the hurricane in our Southwest Florida communities down there. A number of our staff members were able to get assistance from the Emergency Assistance Fund. And again, it's fully funded by donations of staff members across the state. And so typically each year we ask all of our wives and all of our staff members in the state to make a gift that's meaningful to them, to continue to help provide that level of assistance to anyone who needs it in our state.
Thank you so much, Delonix. And, almost, last but not least, but looking at the financial and the fiscal part of our chapter priorities, having, the reserves of around $5,000 year to year, this money that we have from our sponsorships, using those sponsorship dollars for our events, for our ERGs, for peer communities and our Rising Star program. And, we are working with the State Alliance. Thank you again to all of you from the State Alliance for your partnership on this. We work hand in hand with them on our fiscal and financial needs, and they keep us on track with our books. And then lastly, I do believe conference priorities, obviously with big part-time, right? Part-time staff has been a focus. And will continue to be a focus on how we get them involved. We want to include them. We're going to get started earlier in the planning process. Like to see ourselves around 250 participants. I know we can get there. We just got to spread the word in our whys to everyone. And, our last priority is just to build that strong conference committee.
Jamie, can I put a plug in for the conference?
You sure can. I was going to ask you.
Yeah, well, get started earlier. We've already started planning process for the YPN conference, and really the YPN conference is to help serve both part-time and full-time staff members across the state. It's a leadership development conference. It allows us to network with each other, and also the educational opportunities that we'll have this coming November 9th through 11th. So mark that down on your calendar. This upcoming November it's really to help develop you thinking outside of the box and how you can take control of your career. And for us to be able to, there's opportunities, a lot of opportunities with this conference, and also being a part of the planning process and being part of the conference committee, giving you some leadership opportunities there. And last but not least, we need support in attendance and from all of our Ys across the state, because the money that we raised in the fees and the sponsorships within this conference will help us support and provide more resources to build more robust ERGs, to build more robust peer committees, and really reinvest the dollars that we raise into our part-time and our full-time staff in learning opportunities. So please mark your calendars down. We expect everybody on this call to be at the conference in November, and I believe tentatively it's set to Clearwater Beach right now, but more info to come on that. Encourage your part-time staff, encourage your other full-time leadership staff to be at that conference. It is going to be the event of the year besides Remley in Jacksonville.
Thank you, Delonix. So I'm going to leave up the screen for you to kind of read through this while I talk about it. So we need your help. We're recruiting board members. You see all of the exciting things that we've done, what we're planning to do, all of our ideas on how, as a chapter, we can help out our colleagues across the state of Florida. It is a lot of fun, a lot of networking, growing yourself, and all, you know, there's all it's endless, right? The dream of YPN in this chapter is, I've been saying this since I've been a part of it. We could do whatever we want and we put our minds to. So we need help. We're recruiting. We're looking for, you know, leader, team leader, director, program directors, executive staff under 35. And just because you don't fit one of these doesn't mean you can't nominate yourself or someone else. But please, we need help spreading the word. So if you would like to become a board member, you've heard from most of our board members today and the seats that they fill. You have any questions on any of those, you can always reach out to anyone on the board, but nominate someone or yourself today, please. And thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. So we are going to move into an Ask Us Anything segment here. So we've covered a lot of information. So before we go into like other ways that you can get involved, because we kind of just did like some highlights, we'll go through like all of the forms and all of those things. We're going to go into like an Ask Us Anything. So rather than, it doesn't look like a lot of people have been using Menti for the question and answer. So we'll put it in the chat. We're going to highlight Ben Major from the State Alliance, Lynn from the State Alliance, and Derek from the Alliance and the Southeast region. I think Cindy also might be on the call too, as one of our local CEOs. And I know Tammy texted and she's running from a appointment, so she might not actually be on yet, but I'll go ahead and be the moderator and we'll highlight all of that group. So we'll add, just give us a second while we highlight them. All right. And I don't see. So let's chat a little bit. Anybody have any questions for this team up on the screen right now? What's like, and it could be any question, burning question. I think all of us are prepared to answer questions. So what we'll do is, I do have a couple questions that we'll get started with. So the first question is going to be, what are the top, like, what do you see the top priorities for the Y in the next upcoming year? What do you see some of those top priorities for the Y? And it can be in your functions. It can be like trends you're seeing. It doesn't need to be an official endorsement. Oh, I see Cindy. Cindy, let me add you to the spotlight. Hey, Cindy. So the first question again is, what are some of the top priorities you see the Y working on in the next year? Lynn, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I was just getting ready. Actually, can you all hear me okay? I switched to a headset. I think not only in Florida, but as a movement in general, our leadership development is number one in order for us to really strengthen the movement. So events like today are extremely important, as well as learning from each other and collaborating, you know, is I think a number one thing that we all should focus on. Because if we don't grow our own, we're going to be in serious problems moving forward. And then I think also how we can work better together. And that's just from the Alliance perspective, right? How we can help each other and not worry about boundaries or resources or anything else. is the other number 2 priority. And I'll say that not only for Florida, but globally too, as a movement.
All right. Great.
And
Cindy, what about you? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, totally agree with Lynn. But the other thing I think that we really need to focus on is our greater community awareness. How many times are you in the community and they always go, well, I didn't know the Y did that. I didn't know, you guys did this or that. I feel like we have a lot of challenges with that because of the Y is so broad with different things that we do, from babies to, older seniors, that sometimes just community awareness and telling our story is kind of like what I'm trying to do. We've been doing in Collier County is, do you know your why? I continue to feel that that's a big challenge. And part of that then I think then relates, Lynn, to like the staffing and growing your own, because some of those staff don't know what we do, even though they've grown up in the Y. And I've been having those conversations as well. So to me, the top priority is really trying to figure out how we can get the community to understand what we do more across the board, state as well as our state alliance.
Yes, and you say that, right? Like we've always had a hard time telling people our story. I think that's a great thing. So we have another question, and it's, what are the best strategies for finding classes required for the various leadership certification? So I think, Derek, this is right up your alley, but then I'm also going to say, Ben, why don't you chime in too, of like strategies that you've had through your career?
So I think that that's a great question, Robert. We recognize that people might have been looking for a certain class to try and find it available, checked a few times, and maybe gotten discouraged because they weren't able to see a public posting for a specific class. And so one of the best ways, if you are looking in LCDC trying to find a specific class that you do not see available, is to reach out to us and let us know. There's a request form for support from the hub. There's no fee to a YMCA or any staff to use this. So if you are looking for leading organizational change or leading and coaching others and you're not finding an option available, put in that support request, because we'll make sure we create a class opportunity, connect with the trainer who can teach it, and get you that registration link for that specific learning. And then the other piece to that is, if you're trying to figure out what classes you need to take to reach a certification, we can also schedule a one time to do a learning navigation, review your transcripts, see what you've already done, and map out some upcoming trainings as well, and link you to those. So we are here to support that journey. I know that it can seem challenging to sift through everything on LCDC, and sometimes we don't even see what we need. So we're here to support that as well.
Yep, I 100% agree. And I will also add to really feel comfortable to engage those organizational leaders or the person that might have a role that you strive to get to, because they may not only be able to directly tell you the classes you need and maybe how to get there, but they might also offer opportunities and classes that you might want to consider that might strengthen some of those competencies that can help you get there. So I think it's having a healthy balance. And you'll be very surprised at how willing an organizational leader would be to help you if they see like the passion and the interest from you. So I agree with you, Derek.
So the next question that we've got is, what do you see as some areas of the Y that need improvement? And so we're going to do, I'm going to do Cindy and I'm going to do Derek for this one.
Of all Ys, or just
I think us as a movement, our large
us as a movement. Kind of gonna go back to awareness, but probably more like engagement and cultivation. I think could be huge. We need more volunteers, we need staff, we need a lot of things, right? Resources. And I think just engaging people and businesses and communities, and then cultivating those relationships.
Awesome. Derek, what about you?
I think that coming out of the pandemic, a lot of staff members have been focused on operations so much that they've been in the trenches, and I think getting back to a space where people are engaged in peer communities, because learning can happen in a classroom, but it can also happen informally through a group of peers, and finding ways to re-engage across the movement in learning opportunities. But there also is a lot of communication that we need to improve at to get the information out to y'all. So I think that there's yes, we want to increase participation. So we also have to increase the communication about these opportunities that we have available. And I think that can help with our culture, as that we're trying to put our cause front and center for our staff so that they feel like they're going to work for something that really resonates with them and they're feeling supported. So I think getting back into that engagement with others and the learning and leadership development, in order to scale up our trainings, we also need more people engaged as trainers. So trying to get Y leaders back into the processes that they were in with the YPN boards and peer community leaders, and trying to get team members back engaged.
Great answers. So another question that came in is, how does the state of Florida, right? So the actual government state of Florida impact some of the DEI work that we see in the Y movement? So I would love, we're going to do, Ben, this is right up your alley. So I'm going to say Ben, Lynn, and then I will help answer some of it too from the advocacy side.
It has a heavy impact. I think we all on the call have a good awareness of how much it impacts us. But I will also say, I'm an optimistic person. Let me preface with that. I think it hosts opportunity to learn, but then also commit to action with the learning, if that makes sense. So, I think specifically about the innovation process that the YMCA follows, I think we do a good job of identifying the need or the barrier. And I think we do a good job of talking about it, just to explore what we can do to get after the work. And from my, from my personal perspective, I see a lot of those processes ending at that point. So I think with where the state is at, I think everyone is just trying, I think everyone has the common goal of strengthening communities. That's our cause. That's what we're trying to do. And I think sometimes it's good just to align with not just the Y, but with other nonprofits or other businesses and organizations to really determine what is that North Star to the DEI work. I always say in every space, right? Every single YMCA is doing equity advancement if you offer financial assistance, right? But just recently, this past decade, we started to really label like the strategies and work using those, I will say, buzzwords that the state of Florida is trying to figure out how to navigate with. So it's definitely impacting business that we all know, and it's impacting decisions and operations. But at the same time, this is the moment in time to really get yourself into other spaces just to learn what others doing, right? Like, I think you're watching the news, Disney is making some business decisions based off of the state of Florida, and the work. But they're also having talks and conversations with other organizations to see how they do it. So it's impacting us in terms of the decision-making and the business and operations, but it's also opening up the door to learn what other organizations are doing as well. And it can lead to some potential collaborations over the next few years.
Lynn, anything else to add?
Yeah, I echo what Ben said. It is making it difficult in Florida to do what we are very good at, and we've been doing really great work. I think you still need to continue to do that work and to lift it up. We just have to frame it different ways. I mean, and I also think that's a learning moment for us is continue to do the work as well as, and then each individual, we have to learn how to navigate that, right? So you have to learn as an individual, how do I keep my personal thoughts over here? We stay bipartisan with the legislature, but yet we also continue to make impact in the communities that we know really need it and the individuals that really need it, that don't have the resources and the opportunities. So how do we bring that equality there and opportunity side? So it is challenging, and I challenge each of us to figure out how to manage it, right? Not only as an individual, but actually as a movement too, because we're going to continue to do the work and continue to be for the human spirit and the human being. So That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I'll just add as one of the advocacy guys, right? That walks some of these fine lines, right? My biggest piece of advice is don't believe everything that you read, right? There's so many factors that go on in so many different places and spaces, and someone's interpretation of what words are on a piece of paper could be something completely different. So I wouldn't say don't change tremendous things about the work that you're doing without truly understanding what the problem is. And I mean that on note with no political connotations. Like, look at it, interpret it. If it's a law, bring in a lawyer to advise you, but look at what you can do, right? Because it's sometimes what we interpret something being and what something actually is are two different things. And I'll use an example. Is for so long we thought that the law around pre-employment drug tests, right, was like you have to pre-drug test every single human being that walks in your door. Well, that's not what the law actually says. That was our interpretation of it. And so there are things around there that really, when we start to peel back what we need, which I love the fact that Ben brought it back to the strengthening community. When we look at that as that North Star is like, how do we do that? It doesn't matter what you call something. It doesn't matter what you do. It just matters that that is the work that you're doing. So kudos. We got one more question in the chat, and then we'll kind of wrap up this section. And if, hopefully we'll get advice to say if we like this, we'll extend more time in the next day of learning. But the next one is, what is the best approach to implementing a new topic or program or workshop that sometimes can be sensitive to discuss? So it could be things like mental health, or the work around the LGBTQ plus community, or around race, or maybe it's around like how to do something different. What is the best approach to implementing a new topic, program, or workshop that can be sensitive to discuss? And I'll open it up. Who wants it?
I can start it off. Hopefully someone can end it off. But I think, well, one, I would recommend, just my own perspective, I think it's important to, one, really identify the need or barrier, right? I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty, right? Because coming from the camp world, we can just wake up with an idea and think like, oh, we should just do it because it sounds good to us. But, did we take the steps to really figure out if it's a need? Did we involve other people in the thought process to get other perspectives? So I think, when you have an idea to do a workshop or implement an initiative, it's just important to really address what is the need for it, and then involving people in the process. And I think the other hard question too is really understanding the audience for the need, and then understanding what resources you have that can give the audience the best experience. Like, we can all probably agree mental health is important. So there should be more mental health workshops, right? But then you have to peel the onion back. All right, so mental health shows up in different ways for different people, right? And then depending on your dimension of diversity, that mental health approach might have to look a little bit different. So I think I would just recommend just making sure you do all the research and understanding, and just involve multiple people in the process from start to finish. Like, don't bring people in at the end, right? And then, you're sitting somewhere and trying to figure out, I didn't realize it wasn't going to work, right? Well, did you ask? Did you get that feedback? Or you might look out and it really is something people needed, and you didn't get the feedback, but it worked. The stars aligned. So just involve as many people as you can in the process. I'm a good fan of a task force, because you have an end goal, you know what the need is, and you can work on it. But definitely having that system and process before just activating on it, just taking your time and making sure you have everything lined up to plan it out.
Awesome. And I see Cindy's off mute. So Cindy, you got it too.
Well, I totally agree with Ben, but as you were asking that question, I just take it back to, what would you do with any program or something you want to implement, and get your data. I'm all about the, finances too, so, what's it going to cost, how it's going to impact the community and the organization. And I just agree with everything Ben said. Get your facts, get your input, and go from there. But I don't see that I know it's sensitive, but so are a lot of things. I just think you do it just like you would do anything else.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay, we have one question left, and it's going to be a one-word answer, and everyone's going to answer it. How do you define leadership? One word. How do you define leadership?
Can't be too
Empowerment. Sorry, we both went. What was your word, Cindy?
I
If
wanted
it's the
it to
same,
be
I'm
two
gonna tell
words.
them.
Well, you can name your 2 words.
Well, I always think you need to be present. And could explain that, but that's my thing.
Present empowerment. Derek and Ben.
I think visionary is my word. If you're going to lead people, you have to know which way you're trying to lead them.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say comfortable with losses and comfortable with wins. Like,
That's not one word.
I know, I
I was
cheat.
gonna say be present and be knowledgeable, but I only had one word I could say.
Listen, it was becoming a conversational panel, so I thought maybe I could like step out. But I would say comfortable with discomfort. That's 3 words. There you go. Off mute.
Yeah.
So
You
we
know
just
what's
moved from
interesting
5 to
is-
3.
Well, what's interesting too is thank you, Morgan, for putting motivator in the chat. So I'd be interested for everybody else to answer that question in chat. Just curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. Sorry, I kind of shanghaied your.
No, drop it in the chat. I mean, I think that those are those questions, right? When you limit the amount of responses, that some of the most like innovative and like creativity comes out to say like, okay, how would I summarize that if I only got to choose one? And I see coaching and risk taker, motivator, role model, lots of stuff coming in there. Empowerment. So I want to thank y'all for being able to, one, for the group, for the participants to ask questions, and then to Derek, Lynn, Cindy, and Ben for one, raising their hand and being able to be asked literally anything off the books, right? Like there was no script, there was nothing to this. So thank you for that. And thanks for everyone that participated.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, so we are gonna land the day of learning today, and so we've got a little bit more to talk about, and I'll encourage you to get your phones out and be able to. There's lots of QR codes and lots of things ways that you can get involved, and it all emphasizes the stuff that we've talked about today. So we talked about getting involved and connected. So these are going to be some of the buckets that we'll talk through. So the first one that doesn't have its own slide is the advocacy network. So one of the functions that Lynn built up is the fact that the alliance is what I would say the chief advocate, right, for the work that we do at the Y. But everybody else is also a chief advocate of what happens at the local level, right, within the Y. But we have a network, right? So we have like when a bill comes up or when there's an initiative around to get out to the community, there's this network that we rely on. We send what we call like network or the alerts, and we ask you to like write to your senator or your representative on behalf of the Y. So I'll encourage you to scan that code. The rest of these, we've talked a little bit about them, but now is the time of like the action to get involved, right? So we talked about some of them, but now we'll talk, like you'll be able to actually get involved in them. So the first one is this committees and volunteer opportunities. So we talked a lot about like, how do I get involved? This is probably the best form to fill out. So this form will let you choose your peer communities, your employee resource groups, and any type of volunteer work that you want to do in YPN. You also heard from everybody that there's a lot of need. Oftentimes we say that the work that we do in YPN and in the State Alliance only happens by what you pour in. So you get out, all of this stuff was put on by volunteers. all of the day of learning. So you get out the stuff of what you put into it. So if there was one person that did all of this, it'd be a little frustrating, right? So being able to pour in to get to what you get out. And that form is kind of your gateway to get there. We mentioned here around recruiting board members, we have extended that deadline from today to next Friday. If you have already applied, thank you so much, or nominated yourself or someone else, thank you. We'll start to review some of those applications the first 2 weeks of June, maybe give us the 3rd week of June, and we'll start reaching out to any type of next steps or things like that. If for some reason you don't get nominated to the board, usually what happens is we go with people that have worked somewhere else in the network. So I would encourage you, if you don't get right to the board, then look at potentially becoming a peer community leader or an employee resource group leader or a trainer within the Y network, right? There's so many opportunities to get involved, and those opportunities allow the board to say, okay, this person has actually put in a lot of work and they should be elevated to help strategize around the work. Yes, Mike is still pushing, a member of the recognition committee. We got lots of fun stuff that we want to do around that. So here are your peer communities. There are 12 of them, soon to be 13, with property and facilities coming on board in August. This is the same form as the other ones around how to get connected to the peer communities. It's all one form with 3 different sections, but these are all of the opportunities that you can get connected to. And so what I said before, I always say register for the peer communities that are relevant for your job and or anything that you're interested in or wanting to grow in. It's just good space to listen in and understand a little bit more around those spaces. Employee resource groups. So these are the 6 employee resource groups that we have. These also match the national employee resource groups. Ben did an excellent job at framing that up, but there's always opportunity both to get involved in the actual group and or lead the group, right? So there's plenty of opportunity around there to get involved in that. Each of the leaders work with that group or with that employee resource group for like events or communications or connection to the national movement, like Ben framed up. Here it is, Delonix, this one's for you. So we are currently looking at conference committee planning. So we have 2 events that are happening back to back. So one is the Florida Leadership Conference, which is looking at think about that as like an external facing conference. So bringing together partners and community stakeholders, senior leaders and execs that are going to talk about like the strategy around what does it mean to strengthen community in the state of Florida. If you also go into the Rising Star program or the Emerging Leaders program, you will get an invite to that conference from being in that program as well. Then we also have the YPN Chapter 27 staff rally or conference. Anything else you want to plug there, Delonix?
No, we need a lot of support and a lot of help planning the conference. It's going to be a great conference and great time to really build your leadership skills and take a focus on your career. So better be there.
Yes. And again, we will share all of these links. If you registered for the day of learning and you registered through Zoom, you'll get a list of the links of how you get involved as well. So we've got other committees or other opportunities. So we talked about recognition. That form is the same form as the other ones above. At the end, it says, do you want to get involved in? And it lists some volunteer opportunities. And it has a yes, a no, or maybe I'd like to learn more. So we will be, once we get the new board members in place, the next kind of layer of our governance work that Jamie presented would be that we will start building out these committees and these functions. So if you haven't done it, you got time to do it. One of the things too that we were reminded in the surveys is that link sometimes is a little bit hard to navigate, or it just takes a little bit of time. So there are link onboarding, orientation, and training opportunities that happen monthly that are led by the YUSA team. So if you ever feel like if you've clicked 5 times and you haven't had something, I would encourage you to get onboarded and understand link. Once you understand how things are organized, how the system was built, it's very easy to navigate and to find the things that you want. We talked a little bit, Derek highlighted this a little bit around the completing your leadership certification. So these are the 4 areas of certification. You need help navigating, or you have questions, or you need a specific class, shout out to Robert for lifting that up in the Ask Us Anything. You can scan that code and it will take you to what we call the truck that Derek alluded to. And those help us like address trends, classes, trainings, trainers, you name it. If you're looking at training and leadership development, that is your place to go. We'll also have you go ahead and save the date. You've got 4-ish events. Actually, technically it's 5 with the next day of learning. So we will plan to do another day of learning on September 1st. We post this as when we wrap this up, there will be a survey. The survey is to gauge, like, did you like this content? Did you like the flow? Is it too short? Is it too long? Give us a little bit of feedback there. And if you want to raise your hand and help plan the next day of learning on September 1st, we encourage you to do so. We'll have the Florida Regional Multicultural Leadership Experience in Jacksonville in September, on September 28th and 29th. And it looks like Ben says registration will open June 1st for that. And so naturally, by registering for this thing, you will be added to the larger listserv, or the larger communication there. Then we've also got the Florida Leadership Conference, which we already talked about, and the YPN chapter conference and staff rally. So it is time to celebrate. We've got 8 minutes left. There are some things that we like to celebrate when it comes to this. So last year we didn't have a conference. So that means that we have all of 2022 to kind of reflect and celebrate on people that got awards, got their leadership certification. And we will talk a little bit about launching the new awards and nomination process. So there are 4 main awards and recognitions here. So this was in 2022. So know that there are people that are participating in programs that were from that are in 2023 that are not captured here yet. And so the first one is the ELRN's 30 under 30. Alexis Lopez was one of the Florida people from the YMCA of the Suncoast that got nominated. Couple things that aren't on here that I'm now realizing is that MLD, the Multicultural Leadership Development Department, also does a program called the Multicultural Executive Development Institute. And we had we had 2 people that graduated from that program in 2022. So Charlene Lyons and Igor Ivanovich did that. So I want to celebrate them. I'm not going to read all these names because we would be here for a couple hours, but I want you to look through these names. These are all the people in 2022 that achieved their leader certification. The leader certification can be done completely online. It can also be done in a workshop format, but pretty great amount of people that were able to do it in 2022. We've got Q1 2023. You can see we got more people that have actually achieved this. So lots of really great work. And if you have a colleague that on here that their name is on here, go ahead and congratulate them, because it does take time and energy to get through some of these certifications. So we had 2 people in 2022 that achieved their team leader in the state of Florida and Puerto Rico. So please, if Will, YMCA Southwest Florida, and Bonnie from the YMCA Northwest Florida achieve those 2 certifications in 2022. I actually got my multi-team leader for the first time in 2022 as well. So there's that. And then in 2022, Jamie Rusnick, who presented here, got her organizational leader certification. And in Q1, both Charlene Lyons and Delonix Cortez got their leadership certification for organizational leader. So awesome work. It is no easy task this is not like a check the box type of cert, but these are really foundational opportunities that people can grab onto and develop from. And you can see a lot of them, because they've gone through this, are also the same people that are presenting or serving. So there's lots of opportunities there. All right, Mike, now is your time to shine. I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about our YPN awards that are open now as of today.
They are open. So again, you can follow the QR or the link. It is a simple Google form. Again, what did I say? We would love 100%. So everyone on this call is from one of our Ys. If all you did is nominate somebody that you lead, somebody that leads you, somebody that you work with. Again, it doesn't have to be an essay. We're just asking you to pick a category that they qualify for, nominate them for that, fill in a little bit about some of the great things they do. And then our committee, which again, need committee members, will get together and pick some of the great people here. And what we really want to do too, just to let you know, is the more nominations that we get, we go back and we give all that information back to your associations. And they oftentimes will, again, still recognize all of those individuals locally. That's what our encouragement is, even if they don't necessarily win the selection for these statewide, chapter-wide nominations. So again, it is open now. Share with your peers. I would love to see this be not 100 in the last 4 years, but 100 nominations in the next month, and make our job really, really, really hard. So let's do it. Let's lift everyone up. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right. So the last thing we're going to do is jump over to our slide deck here. And I want you to, we're going to share our feedback. So this is a quick survey. It will take you probably less than 5 minutes to do. But if you enjoyed the content, or if you didn't enjoy the content, we want your feedback in this. So on the survey, there is a way to give feedback on if you attended, if you didn't attend, why, yes, like why or why not, what did you like, what did you not like, what workshops did you like, what did you not like, and then also if you want to either volunteer for the next day of learning, which is September 1st, or if you want to give some feedback on the next topics that we should cover, it is also in that survey. So it has been an amazing day. Hopefully you've taken something away. We've got about 2 minutes. So on your way out, I would love for you, if you have access to the chat, to drop in the chat, what was the biggest takeaway that you had today? And it could be a couple words, it could be a full sentence, but this is an opportunity for you to really be a part of this, right? We covered a lot. So we invite you in, we want you to be a part of it, and we want you to make YPN and the State Alliance yours, because you're part of those things. So on your way out, drop in if you took away something, and we will see you in September, if not. Yeah, we got some personal boards, reminder how it was important to gather as one. Yeah, that was a good takeaway for me. Thank you, Jennifer, and shout out to the Tampa team for a watch party.